Hi guys, tonight we drift quietly into the true story of the medieval inn. The sun is sinking behind the hills, the air is turning very cold, it feels like a thin sheet of ice against your cheeks. The wind is coming off the open fields like a cold river, finding every gap in your thick clothes. You can hear the dry autumn grass snapping under your heavy boots. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you want to let me know where you are listening from and what time it is where you are. I always love seeing those little snapshots of the world. Now dim the lights and let the story begin. You are walking on a road made of earth and stone. It is late in the day and the light is turning a soft, pale grey. Everything around you is getting dark. The trees at the edge of the path look like tall, thin shadows reaching for the sky. The ground beneath your feet is not smooth. It is full of deep ruts left by the wheels of heavy wooden carts. These ruts are filled with cold brown water from the rain that fell earlier in the morning. Every time you take a step, you have to be careful. You do not want to slip in the wet mud. You can hear the sound of your boots. It is a slow, wet thud. Thud. Squelch. Thud. Squelch. The mud is thick and heavy. It sticks to the bottom of your leather shoes, making each foot feel like it is made of lead. Your legs are very tired. You have been walking since the sun first came up, and your muscles feel stiff and tight. The weight of your pack pulls on your shoulders. The leather straps have been rubbing against your cloak all day, and you can feel the dull ache in your back. You shift the bag a little to the left, then to the right, trying to find a spot that does not hurt. But the ache stays there. It is a deep, heavy feeling that tells you it is time to stop. You stop for a moment to catch your breath. You look up at the sky. The clouds are low and look like piles of wet wool. There is just a small sliver of orange left on the horizon where the sun has gone down. It is a cold color. It does not give any warmth. You lift your hand to your face and blow into your palms. Your breath comes out as a white cloud. It hangs in the air for a second, swirling in the wind, and then it vanishes. The air is so sharp that it stings your throat when you breathe in. It smells of damp earth and the coming frost. In your hand, you hold a long walking staff. This is your micro-history detail for the evening. It is made from a branch of ashwood. The wood is pale and very strong. Over many miles of walking, your hands have rubbed the top of the staff until it is as smooth as silk. You can feel the grain of the wood under your thumb. It is cold to the touch, but it is a solid thing to lean on. You plant the end of the staff into the mud. It makes a soft pop sound as it breaks the surface of a puddle. You lean your weight against it and feel your heartbeat slowing down. Everything is very quiet out here. There are no birds singing now. They have all gone to find a place to sleep in the hedges. The only sound is the wind moving through the bare branches of the trees. It sounds like a long, low sigh. You stand perfectly still for a minute. This is a moment of silence. You are all alone on this road. The world feels very big and very empty. The darkness is moving in from the corners of the fields, swallowing up the green and the brown. You feel very small in the middle of it all. Then you see it. Just a little further down the road, there is a shape. It is a low building made of stone and dark wood. It sits right beside the path. Most of these inns were built on trade routes. This is a simple fact of history. They were not built in pretty places just to look at the view. They were built where the travellers were. If a road moved people and goods, that is where an inn would be. The owners knew that tired people with money would need a place to hide from the night. As you look at the building, you see a flicker of light. It is a small, warm glow coming from a narrow window. The glass in the window is thick and wavy, so the light looks like a tired eye blinking at you. It is the yellow glow of a fire. Just seeing it makes you feel a little bit warmer. You imagine the heat inside. You think about the smell of wood burning in a hearth. You can see a thin line of grey smoke rising from the chimney. The wind catches the smoke and pulls it apart, but the scent of it reaches you. It is a sweet, woody smell. It is the smell of safety. You start walking again, moving a bit faster now. The thought of a fire gives your legs a little bit of strength. The road dips down a little as you get closer to the house. The builders did this on purpose. They put the inn a bit lower than the road so the rainwater would run away from the walls. They were clever people. They knew how to keep a building dry, even if it was simple and rough. You walk past a small wooden fence that is falling over. The wood is black with age and wet with dew. Your boots are now completely covered in mud. You can no longer see the brown leather. They are just heavy lumps at the end of your legs. You reach the front of the building. The walls are thick. They are made of big stones held together with grey lime. You can see the marks of the tools where the stones were shaped long ago. The roof is made of thick straw. It looks heavy and dark under the grey sky. It is a place built to last. It is a place built to stand against the wind and the rain for 100 years. You stand in front of the door. It is a big, heavy piece of oak wood. It is dark and has many scratches on it. You can see where iron nails have been hammered into the grain to make it stronger. There is a large iron ring hanging from the middle of the door. It is cold and pitted with rust. You reach out and touch the wood. It feels rough and hard. Behind this door, there is a different world. Outside, there is the cold wind, the wet mud, and the growing dark. Inside, there is the roar of people and the heat of the fire. You take one last look at the road behind you. It is almost gone now. The grey light has turned to black. The trees are just dark shapes. You are the only person left out here. You feel a shiver go down your spine, not just from the cold, but because the night feels so big. You turn back to the door. You take a deep breath. You can hear a faint sound coming from inside. It is a low hum. It is the sound of many voices talking at once. It is the sound of life. You lift your hand and push against the heavy oak. It does not open easily. It is thick and resists you. You have to lean your shoulder into it. As the door begins to move, you hear the hinges groan. It is a slow, heavy sound. A crack of warm light appears, and then you step across the threshold. The cold air of the road follows you in for a second, but then the warmth of the inn rushes out to meet you. You are no longer alone. The night shift has begun. You stand still for a long moment, your boots sinking just a little deeper into the soft, dark earth. The building in front of you looks like a large, heavy animal huddling against the ground to stay warm. It does not stand tall and proud. Instead, it crouches low beside the road. You notice again how the ground slopes down toward the walls. In these old times, the people who made buildings were very clever about water. They knew that if they built the house a little bit lower than the main path, the heavy rains of autumn would flow away from the center of the road and keep the walls from getting too soggy. It was a simple way to stay dry in a world that was often very wet and very cold. The light from the windows is what holds your eyes. These windows are not like the big, clear sheets of glass you might see today. They are very small and set deep into the thick stone walls. The glass itself is thick and full of ripples. This is your microhistory detail for this part of our journey. This kind of glass is often called crown glass. When it was made, the person making it would blow a big bubble of glass and then spin it until it was flat. Because of this, the middle of the glass has a thick, round lump in it that looks like a bullseye. It is hard to see clearly through it. If you tried to look inside, the people would look like blurry, dancing shapes of orange and brown. You watch the light as it moves. It is not a steady glow. It pulses and jumps because it comes from a large fire and many small candles made of animal fat. The light is the color of a ripe orange or a glowing coal. It spills out of the small windows and hits the puddles in the road. For a second, the dark, muddy water looks like it is filled with liquid gold. You see the reflection of the inn in a pool of water at your feet. The reflection shivers whenever the wind blows across the surface. The contrast is very sharp. Behind you is the vast blue-black dark of the open country. In front of you is this tiny pocket of warm golden light. It feels like a choice between two different worlds. You take a step closer to one of the windows. The stone of the wall is rough. If you ran your hand over it, you would feel the lumpy bits of sand and the small cracks where moss has started to grow. The moss is soft and damp, like a tiny green carpet. You can smell the wet stone and the old straw of the roof. The thatch on top of the inn is very thick, maybe as thick as your arm is long. It has been there for many years, and it has turned a very dark brown, almost black, from the rain and the smoke from the chimney. It looks soft and heavy, like a big blanket pulled down over the years of the house. Now, you begin to hear the sounds of the night shift more clearly. When you were further back on the road, the world was silent. But here, next to the walls, you can hear the life inside. It is a low, rumbling sound. It sounds like a big pot of water boiling on a stove. It is the sound of many men and women talking all at once. You can hear a deep voice let out a loud laugh. It starts low and then rises up, cutting through the other noises. Then you hear the sharp clack of wood hitting wood. Maybe it is a cup being put down hard on a table, or perhaps is a game of dice being played by men in the corner. Someone inside starts to sing. The voice is not very pretty. It is a bit gravelly and rough, like the sound of stones rubbing together. The singer forgets some of the words and hums instead, but then other people join in for a moment and the sound gets louder and stronger. It is a happy sound, even if it is not perfect. It makes you think of people sitting close together, their shoulders touching, forgetting about the long, lonely road they walked today. You pause and listen to the wind again. It whistles as it moves around the corner of the inn. It sounds thin and hungry. This is a moment of quiet reflection. You think about how many thousands of people have stood right where you are standing, merchants with bags of wool, messengers with letters for the king, and simple people walking to the next town. All of them stood here in the dark, feeling the cold on their necks and looking at that same orange light in the windows. They all felt that same mix of being tired and being hopeful. You are part of a very long line of travellers. The road belongs to everyone, but the inn belongs to the night. A historical fact comes to your mind as you look at the building. In these times, inns were almost always found on the big trade routes. This was because travelling was very slow and very hard. A person could only walk a certain number of miles before the sun went down. Because of this, inns grew up at regular spots along the way, like beads on a string. They were there because they had to be. Without them, the people moving goods from one city to another would have nowhere safe to hide from the cold. The inn was a business, but it was also a tool for survival. You move toward the door. It is set back into the wall, tucked away from the wind. There is a small wooden sign hanging above it. The sign moves a little in the wind, making a tiny, lonely creak sound. Creak, creak. You cannot see what is painted on the sign because the paint has faded away over many years, but you can see the shape of a carved bird or a tree. This sign was the way people knew what the house was called, even if they could not read words. They would say, "I am staying at the sign of the green tree." You reach out your hand. Your fingers are very cold, and they feel a bit stiff as you move them. You touch the heavy wood of the door. It is oak, and it is very hard. The surface is not smooth. It is full of little hills and valleys in the grain of the wood. You can feel the cold iron of the hinges. They are big and lumpy, hammered out by a blacksmith on a glowing anvil. You press your palm against the door. You can feel a very slight vibration coming through the wood. The building is humming with the energy of the people inside. The smell of the smoke is much stronger here. It is a thick, sweet smell that makes you feel hungry. Underneath the smoke, you smell something else. It is the scent of old ale and cooked meat. It is a heavy smell that stays low to the ground. It is the smell of a place that has been full of people for a long, long time. It is not a fresh smell like the woods or the fields, but it is a warm one. You take a slow, deep breath. You are about to leave the silence of the autumn night. Once you push this door open, the quiet will be gone. You will be in a place where people are loud, where the air is thick, and where there is no such thing as being alone. You look back at the road one last time. The grey ruts are now hidden in the black shadow. The wind gives you one last cold push against your back, as if it is telling you to go inside. You brace your feet on the muddy ground. You put your weight into your shoulder. You are ready to see what is behind the glass eyes of the house. You push, and the door begins to give way. The heavy oak door moves slowly. It is so thick that it feels like pushing against a wall. As it swings inward, the first thing you feel is a sudden blast of heat. It hits your face like a warm hand. It is a strange feeling after being in the biting cold for so long. Your skin, which was tight and cold, begins to tingle. It feels like tiny needles are pricking your cheeks as they start to warm up. This heat is not clean or light, it is heavy and thick. It carries the weight of 100 fires and the breath of many people. You step over the high wooden beam at the bottom of the doorway. This is the threshold. It is a thick piece of timber that has been worn down in the middle by thousands of boots. It is smooth and shiny from all that rubbing. As your foot lands on the floor inside, the sound of the world changes. Outside, the wind was a long, thin whistle. Inside, the sound is a deep, low roar. It is the sound of a large room full of life. It wraps around you like a heavy cloak. You take a step forward, and the door swings shut behind you. You hear the heavy wooden latch drop into place. Thunk. It is a solid, final sound. The cold night is gone. The dark road is on the other side of that thick oak, and for now it cannot reach you. You are inside. You stand there for a moment, just inside the door. letting your eyes adjust. The light in here is very different from the grey twilight of the road. It is dim and orange. The air is full of a thin blue haze. This is smoke from the great fire in the middle of the room. It does not all go up the chimney. Instead, it hangs in the air, drifting in long, slow ribbons under the ceiling. The smell is the next thing that fills your senses. It is very strong. It is the smell of a medieval inn, and it is something you will never forget. It smells of wood smoke, yes, but also of wet wool. Your own cloak is starting to steam as the heat hits the damp fabric. You smell old ale that has been spilled on the floor and has turned sour. You smell the salty scent of roasting meat coming from the back of the room, and underneath it all, there is the smell of the earth. The floor beneath your feet is not made of wood or stone. It is packed dirt, beaten down until it is as hard as rock. Covering the dirt are fresh rushes. These are long green water plants that have been dried and spread across the floor. This is your microhistory detail for this moment. These rushes were used like a rug. They were meant to keep the floor dry and to hide the dirt. Sometimes the innkeeper would mix sweet-smelling herbs like lavender or mint in with the rushes. When you walk on them, they make a soft crunch and crackle sound. They release a faint, grassy smell that tries to fight the sour smell of the ale. You look down and see the yellow stalks of the plants peeking out from under your muddy boots. As you look around the room, you see that it is much bigger than it looked from the outside. The ceiling is low, and it is held up by massive beams of dark wood. These beams are black with age and soot. You can see the marks of the axes that shaped them hundreds of years ago. Hanging from the beams are bundles of dried herbs and pieces of salted meat. They sway very slightly in the warm air that rises from the fire. In the center of the room, there is a large metal pan on legs filled with glowing orange coals. This is a brazier. It is a simple tool used to bring heat to parts of the room that the main fire cannot reach. It looks like a big iron basket, and the heat coming from it makes the air look wobbly. You watch a small spark pop from the coals. It rises into the air, a tiny dot of bright light, and then it vanishes into the smoke. You find yourself standing very still. This is a moment of atmospheric silence for you. You are just one person in a room full of strangers. You watch the way the light from the brazier hits the smoke. The smoke dances. It twirls and spins in the air, caught in the little drafts of wind that come through the cracks in the walls. It looks like ghosts dancing near the ceiling. You watch the dust motes floating in the orange light. They look like tiny stars. For a heartbeat, the noise of the voices seems to move far away, and you are just watching the beauty of the fire and the haze. A historical fact to remember is that in these times there was no such thing as personal space. Medieval buildings were designed for many people to be together in one room. Privacy was a luxury that only the very rich could afford. In an inn like this, the common room was the heart of everything. It was where you ate, where you talked, and where you would eventually sleep. You are part of a crowd now. Your shoulder might brush against a merchant, or your boot might touch the dog sleeping by the fire. This was how life was lived close together, sharing the same air and the same heat. Your eyes begin to pick out the people in the shadows. There are long wooden tables lined with benches. The wood of the tables is thick and stained dark by years of use. You see men in rough wool tunics, their faces red from the heat and the drink. You see women with linen cloths covering their hair, leaning in to whisper to one another. No one looks at you for very long. You are just another traveller who has come in from the cold. You are part of the scenery now. The heat is starting to make you feel heavy. The tension that was in your shoulders from the long walk begins to melt away. You feel your muscles go soft. You want to sit down. You want to put your heavy pack on the floor and never pick it up again. The sound of a bubbling pot comes from the hearth. It is a wet, thumping sound as the thick stew inside hits the sides of the iron. Blup, 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 glup. You take another step into the room, moving away from the door. The rushes crunch under your feet. You feel the warmth of the fire on your right side. It is a deep glowing heat that feels like it is soaking into your bones. You look at the dark beams above and the orange light below. You are no longer a person of the road. You are a person of the inn. You are safe from the wind, but you are now in a place where the world is loud and the air is thick. You move toward a bench, looking for a small gap where you might fit in. The story of your night is just beginning to unfold in the smoke and the golden light. You move deeper into the room, letting the heavy door stay closed behind you. Each step you take makes the floorboards creak or the dry rushes crunch. The air here is not like the air outside. It is heavy. It feels like it has weight, as if you are walking through a thin, warm soup. The first thing that truly stops you is the smell. It is not just one scent, but a thick blanket of many different things. The strongest part of this smell is the ale. In this time, ale is everywhere. It is the most important thing for people to drink. A simple historical fact to remember is that in many towns and villages, the water was not safe to touch or drink. It was often dirty and could make you very sick. Because of this, even children drank ale. It was brewed constantly, usually by the women of the village, and it was much safer because of the way it was made. Because it was made so often and in such big amounts, the smell of it gets into everything. It is in the wood of the tables, the straw on the floor, and even the clothes of the people sitting near you. The smell of the ale in this inn is not like the drink you might know today. It does not smell crisp or sharp. Instead, it has a deep, bready scent. It smells like a kitchen where someone is making a lot of fresh dough. It is a bit sweet, like rotting apples in the autumn, but it is also sour and yeasty. It is a heavy, damp smell that fills your nose and stays there. As you stand in the middle of the room, you can almost taste the yeast on your tongue. It is the smell of a busy house that never stays quiet and never stays empty. Mixed with the ale is the scent of the people. You can smell the damp wool of their cloaks as the fire dries them out. It is a fuzzy, earthy smell. You can smell the salt from the meat that is hanging near the chimney. It is a sharp, biting scent that makes your mouth water, even though the air is thick with smoke. All these smells together make the inn feel very small and very crowded, even if there is space to move. It feels like you are being wrapped in a warm, messy hug by the building itself. You look toward the counter where the drinks are kept. This is where you see your microhistory detail for this moment. A leather jack. This is a large jug used for pouring ale, and it is made entirely of thick, black leather. The leather has been sewn together with strong thread and then coated in a dark, sticky sap from trees to make it waterproof. It is not shiny like glass or smooth like silver. It looks tough and heavy. You watch as the person behind the counter lifts the leather jack. It makes a soft, dull thud when it hits the wooden surface. When the ale is poured out, it does not make a splashing sound. It is so thick and heavy that it sounds like a soft, rhythmic glug glug glug. The liquid is cloudy and brown, with a thick head of white foam that looks like sea spray. You find a small space at the end of a long, dark table. You sit down slowly, feeling the hard wood beneath you. This is a moment of atmospheric silence. You do not talk to anyone, and no one speaks to you. You just sit and watch the room. You look at a single candle sitting on the table. The flame is very small and yellow. It dances back and forth because of a tiny draught of wind coming from under the door. You watch the way the melted fat of the candle runs down the side, forming a little hill of white wax. The wax looks like a frozen waterfall. In this quiet moment, you realize how much the noise of the room has become a single, steady hum. It is like the sound of a hive of bees. It does not bother you. It actually makes you feel a bit sleepy. The constant low rumble of voices and the crackle of the fire act like a soft blanket over your thoughts. The light in the room is constantly changing. As the fire in the hearth jumps and falls, the shadows on the walls grow long and then short again. You watch your own shadow on the stones behind you. It is a big, dark shape that moves whenever you shift your weight. The smoke in the air catches light, making it look like there are thin, golden veils hanging from the ceiling. Everything looks soft. There are no sharp edges in this light. The faces of the people across from you are just blurs of warm skin and dark eyes. You lean your elbows on the table. The wood feels cool and slightly sticky. It is a very old table. You can see the deep grooves where many knives have cut into the wood over the years. Some people have carved small marks or letters into the surface, but the wood has been rubbed so smooth by thousands of elbows that the marks are hard to read. You run your fingers over a long crack in the timber. It feels like a little valley. You think about how many people have sat exactly where you are sitting now. They felt the same heat on their faces and smelled the same thick, sour ale. The weight of your travel begins to pull at you again. Now that you are sitting, your legs feel like they are sinking into the earth. The warmth is making your eyelids feel very heavy. You take a slow breath. The air is warm and smells of old wood and sweet yeast. You watch the leather jack being moved to another table. You hear the soft clink of a wooden cup hitting the board. Everything is moving slowly. There is no hurry in the inn. The road is finished for the day, and time seems to stretch out like the shadows on the wall. You are just one more tired traveller in a room full of them, resting in the golden haze of the firelight and the heavy scent of the night. You look around the room for a place to rest your weary body. The room is very full, and the air is thick with the sound of people talking. You do not see any empty tables. In this time, people did not have their own private tables like we do now. A simple fact of history is that everyone in the inn sat together. Whether you were a rich merchant or a poor worker, you shared the same long wooden boards. You find a small gap at the end of a very long bench and move toward it. The bench is made of a single thick piece of oak. It is heavy and dark. As you sit down, the wood feels very hard against your legs. It does not have a cushion or a soft cover. It is just plain, honest wood. At first it feels cold, but as you sit there, the heat from your body starts to warm it up. You feel the weight finally leave your feet. It is such a good feeling. Your toes, which have been cramped inside your leather boots all day, start to relax. You can feel the blood moving back into your tired heels. You lean back a little, letting the wall behind the bench take the weight of your spine. The wall is made of cold stone, but through your thick wool cloak, it just feels solid and safe. The table in front of you is a massive thing. It is made of 3 long planks of wood, held together by heavy iron bolts. This table has seen many years of life. The surface is not flat or smooth. It is full of deep scars and marks. You run your hand over the wood. You feel a long deep groove where someone's knife slipped a long time ago. You feel little round dents where heavy cups have been slammed down in anger or joy. In some places, the wood is as smooth as a polished stone because so many thousands of sleeves have rubbed against it over the years. In other places, the grain is rough and stands up in little ridges. It feels like a map of all the stories that have been told in this room. You look down and see a small object resting on the wood near your hand. This is your micro-history detail for this part of the night. A horn spoon. It is not made of metal like the spoons we use today. It is carved from the horn of a cow. The horn was soaked in hot water until it was soft, then pressed into a shape and left to dry. The spoon is a pale, creamy colour with little streaks of brown and black running through it. It is very light, almost like a piece of thick paper, but it is very strong. You pick it up and feel how smooth it has become from being used every day. It feels warm in your hand. Spoons like this were very common because they were cheap to make and did not get too hot when you dipped them into a bowl of boiling stew. You set the spoon back down and look at the table again. There is a thin layer of dust and grease on the wood that catches the orange light from the fire. You can see the faint marks of circles where wet cups were sitting just an hour ago. The light from the hearth is coming from your side, and it makes the shadows of the crumbs on the table look like tiny mountains. Everything around you is loud, but you find a moment of atmospheric silence right where you are. You stop listening to the words people are saying. Instead, you just listen to the sound as a whole. It is a deep, low hum, like the sound of the sea inside a shell. You watch a single piece of straw on the table. It is thin and yellow. A tiny draught of air from a gap in the wall makes the straw roll over once, then twice. You watch it move with very slow eyes. You feel as if you are underwater, where everything moves more slowly and the sounds are muffled. The world of the road feels like a dream now. The only real thing is the hard bench beneath you and the scarred wood of the table. You notice a man sitting across from you. He is leaning his head on his hand, and his eyes are half closed. He looks as tired as you feel. His clothes are dusty, and there is a small tear in the sleeve of his green tunic. He does not look at you, and you do not look at him for long. In the inn, you are all part of one big group, but everyone is also inside their own quiet world of tiredness. You see a large dog, a brown hound with long ears, walking slowly under the table. You feel its soft fur brush against your boot as it passes. It is looking for scraps of bread or meat. It finds a spot near the fire and circles around 3 times before flopping down with a heavy sigh. The sound of the dog's breath is steady and calm. The smoke from the fire drifts over the table in a long, slow wave. It smells of pine wood and old ash. You watch the smoke as it moves through the air. It looks like grey silk. It curls around the candle on the table and then rises up toward the dark beams above. The beams are so high up that they are lost in the shadows. You can only see the very bottom of them, where the orange light hits the wood. They look strong and ancient, like the bones of the earth holding up the roof. You feel a sense of peace settling over you. You are no longer moving. You are no longer fighting the wind or watching for holes in the mud. You have found your spot. The bench is hard and the table is rough, but they are yours for the night. You lean your elbows on the scarred wood and rest your chin in your hands. Your eyes start to go out of focus as you watch the little yellow flame of the candle. It is a small, brave light in a big, dark room. You breathe in the warm, yeasty air and feel the last of the cold leaving your skin. You are ready to sit here for a long time. You are ready to let the night shift go on around you while you just stay still. The road is far away now, and the inn is your whole world. You are just a traveller at a table, waiting for the night to deepen. The bench feels solid beneath you, and for the first time in many hours, your legs are not moving. You are staying still. A person moves through the shadows toward your table. You do not see their face clearly, but you see their hands. They carry a heavy cup and set it down in front of you on the scarred wood. The sound it makes is a soft, muffled thump. This is not a cup made of glass or thin metal. This is your micro-history detail for this moment. A wooden mazer. It is a shallow, wide bowl used for drinking. It is made from the wood of a maple tree. The wood is a deep, warm brown colour, and it has been rubbed with beeswax until it shines softly in the firelight. Around the top edge, there is a thin band of dull silver. You can feel the cool metal against your thumb and the smooth, grainy wood against your fingers. It feels heavy and honest in your hand. You reach out and wrap your fingers around the mazer. The wood is not cold. It has been sitting near the heat of the fire, and it feels like a warm stone. You lift it slowly. The liquid inside is thick and dark. It is the local ale, made right here in the village. You hold the bowl under your nose and take a slow breath. The smell is very strong. It does not smell like the drinks you know from your own time. It smells like a warm loaf of bread just taken from the oven. It has a sweet, earthy scent, like honey mixed with damp hay. There is a tiny bit of foam on the top, white and bubbly, like the soap in a wash basin. Before you drink, you look into the liquid. This is your moment of atmospheric silence. The surface of the ale is like a dark mirror. You can see the reflection of the great fire in the middle of the room. The orange flames dance on the surface of your drink. You see a tiny spark reflected in the bowl, glowing for a second, and then winking out. The liquid is so dark that you cannot see the bottom of the wood. It looks deep and still. For a few heartbeats, the noise of the inn fades away. You are just looking into this small, dark pool of gold and brown. The world feels very small, just you and the weight of the wooden bowl in your hands. A simple historical fact to keep in your mind is why you are drinking this. In these medieval times, you would rarely ask for a cup of water. The water in the wells and the streams was often not clean. It could have tiny bits of dirt or things that make your stomach hurt. But ale was different. To make ale, the people had to boil the water with grain. This boiling made the drink safe. Even the very young and the very old drank this every single day. It was not just a treat. It was like food in a cup. It gave you strength and kept you healthy when the water was bad. You tilt the mazer toward your lips. The silver rim is cool against your skin. You take your first sip. The ale is not ice cold like the wind outside. It is a little bit warm, about the same as the air in the room. It feels thick on your tongue, almost like a thin cream. The taste is very rich. At first it tastes sweet, like roasted grain or toasted bread. Then it tastes a little bit bitter, like the herbs gathered from the garden. It is a very filling taste. You can feel it moving down your throat, a slow wave of warmth that starts in your chest and spreads out toward your chilly fingers. You take another sip, a bigger one this time. You feel the bubbles of the foam on your top lip. You do not hurry. In the inn, no one is in a rush to finish their drink. The road is closed for the night, and there is nowhere else to go. You watch the other people at the table. They are all doing the same thing. They hold their wooden cups with both hands, leaning their heads back to catch the last drop. You hear the soft sound of swallowing and the deep sighs of men who have been thirsty for 10 miles. The heat from the ale starts to do its work. You feel a soft glow beginning to grow inside your stomach. It feels like you have swallowed a tiny bit of the hearth fire. The shivering that has been hiding deep in your bones finally stops. Your toes feel warm. Your shoulders, which were hunched up against the cold wind, finally drop down and relax. You lean back against the stone wall and hold the mazer against your chest. You can feel the warmth of the liquid through the wood pressing against your palms. You look at the silver band on the rim again. It has tiny marks on it, little scratches where it has been cleaned over and over again. You wonder how many travellers have sipped from this same bowl. You think about the women who brewed this ale, stirring a giant wooden vat over a fire, watching the steam rise. It took a lot of work to make this one cup of drink. They had to grow the grain, dry it, grind it, and cook it. Every sip you take is a gift of their hard work. It is a simple thing, but it feels very important right now. The room seems a little bit brighter now that you have had a drink. The orange light of the candles looks prettier. The sound of the fire crackling is like music. You take one more sip, feeling the grainy texture of the ale. It is not perfectly clear. There are tiny bits of the grain left inside, but that just makes it feel more like a meal. You feel heavy in a good way. The world of the road, with its mud and its cold shadows, feels like it belongs to someone else. You are here, in the warm light, with a bowl of good maple wood in your hands. You set the mazer down on the table. It makes that same soft thump as before. You look at the dark ring it leaves on the wood. The table is covered in these rings, overlapping each other like the scales on a fish. You run your finger around the silver rim one last time. It is smooth and cool. You feel a deep sense of calm. The night is long and the fire is bright, and you have had something warm to settle your spirit. You are ready to just sit and be still. You are ready to let the night shift carry you towards sleep, one slow sip at a time. The ale is gone, but the warmth stays with you, a quiet fire burning in your heart as the wind continues to howl outside the thick stone walls. You lean back on your bench, your body feeling heavy and loose from the warm ale. Your eyes wander across the room, past the dancing shadows and the ribbons of blue smoke. You find yourself watching one person in particular. This is the person who runs this house. They do not stand in the middle of the room and shout. They do not try to be the loudest. Yet you can see that everyone else moves around them. It is as if they are the center of a great wheel, and everyone else is just a spoke turning around them. This is the innkeeper. The innkeeper is a person who has seen many years. Their face is lined with many tiny wrinkles, like a piece of old leather that has been folded too many times. Their skin is a deep, healthy brown from standing near the heat of the fire for so many hours every day. They move with a kind of quiet strength. There is no hurry in their step, but they never seem to stay still for long. You watch as they move from one table to another. Their hands are always busy. One moment, they are wiping a spill from a table with a rough cloth. The next, they are picking up a heavy wooden cup to take it back to the counter. You watch them stand behind the small wooden counter at the side of the room. This is their world. On the counter, there are piles of small metal coins. You hear the sound they make when the innkeeper moves them. It is a sharp, musical clink, clink, clink. To you, it sounds like tiny bells. To the innkeeper, it is the sound of a job well done. They pick up a coin and feel it between their thumb and finger. They know the weight of it. They know if it is good and honest metal. They do not need to look closely. Their fingers have learned the truth of money over many years. This brings us to a simple historical fact about the person who runs the inn. In these times, the innkeeper was not just a host. They were legally responsible for everything that happened under their roof. If someone's bag was stolen or if a fight broke out, the law would look at the innkeeper. They had to be careful. They had to watch every face that came through the door. This is why you feel their eyes on you every now and then. It is not an unkind look. It is just an assessment. They are making sure you are a person of peace. They are making sure you will not cause trouble for their house or their other guests. You look at the innkeeper's waist and see your micro-history detail for this moment. A tally stick. This is a long, thin piece of hazel wood. It has been split down the middle. When someone buys a drink but does not pay right away, the innkeeper takes a small knife and cuts a notch into the wood. Each little cut represents a cup of ale or a bowl of stew. One half of the stick stays with the innkeeper, and the other half goes to the traveller. When it is time to leave, the two pieces of wood are put back together. If the notches match up perfectly, the price is fair. It is a clever way to keep a record in a world where many people do not know how to write numbers on paper. You can see the light of the fire catching the pale, fresh wood inside the notches. It looks like a row of tiny white teeth. The innkeeper lifts a large leather bottle and fills a cup for a man standing nearby. You watch the way their hands move. They are steady. Not a single drop of the dark ale falls onto the counter. There is a kind of beauty in watching someone do a job they have done 10,000 times before. There is no wasted motion. Every move is smooth and sure. You see the innkeeper nod at the man. It is a short, quick movement of the head. It says everything that needs to be said. It says, "Here is your drink, and thank you for your coin, and go back to your seat all at once." You find yourself falling into a moment of atmospheric silence as you watch the innkeeper's hands. The firelight hits the counter in a long orange bar. You watch the innkeeper's fingers move in and out of that light. When their hands are in the light, you can see the dirt under their fingernails and the scars from old burns. When their hands move into the shadow, they disappear completely, leaving only the sound of the coins and the wood. You listen to the rhythm of their work. Scrape goes the cloth on the table. Clink goes the coin on the wood. Slosh goes the ale into the cup. It is a very peaceful rhythm. It sounds like the heartbeat of the building. You realize that this person is the guardian of the night. While everyone else is drinking and laughing, the innkeeper is watching. They see who is getting too angry. They see who is falling asleep at the table. They see when the fire is getting too low. They are like a captain on a ship, making sure everything stays safe while the sea is dark and rough outside. It is a lot of weight to carry on their shoulders, but they do it with a calm face. A quirky detail catches your eye. The innkeeper has a large bunch of iron keys hanging from a leather belt. As they move, the keys make a heavy rattling sound. Jingle clank. Jingle clank. Each key is big and black, made by the local blacksmith. One key might open the cellar where the ale is kept. Another might open the heavy chest where the silver coins are hidden. These keys are a symbol of their power. They are the ones who decide who stays and who goes. They are the ones who lock the world out and keep the warmth in. You take a slow breath and feel the steam from the room on your skin. The innkeeper looks over at you. For a second your eyes meet. They do not smile, but they give you a very small nod. It is a sign of recognition. They have seen you. They have checked you. You are allowed to be here. You feel a sense of safety wash over you. It is a good feeling to be known by the person who guards the door. It makes the straw on the floor feel a little softer and the smoky air feel a little cleaner. The innkeeper moves away to the far end of the room to talk to a group of merchants. You watch the back of their woolen tunic. It is a dull grey colour, worn thin at the elbows. You think about how many nights they have stood in this room. They have seen thousands of people like you come and go. They have heard every story there is to tell. To you, this night is a special journey. To them, it is just another shift in the long history of the house. You lean your head against the wall and close your eyes for just a second, listening to the rattle of the keys and the soft thud of the leather jacks on the counter. The innkeeper is awake, and because they are awake, you can finally start to let go. The world is being watched. The house is in good hands. The night continues its slow turn, and you are exactly where you need to be. You sit very still on your wooden bench, letting the heavy weight of your pack stay on the floor. Now that you've had a bit of ale, your ears seem to open up. The room is no longer just a loud roar of noise. It begins to break apart into many smaller sounds. You can hear the individual voices of the people around you. Some voices are deep and slow, like the sound of a heavy drum. Others are high and fast, like the chirping of birds in the garden. This is the way news travelled in these times. A simple historical fact to keep in your mind is that the medieval inn was like a living newspaper. In these days there were no television sets, no mobile phones, and very few people could read or write words on paper. If you wanted to know what was happening in the world, you had to go to a place where people gathered. The inn was the centre of all information. People from the north met people from the south right here at these tables. They traded stories like they traded bags of grain or pieces of silver. A story about a new law or a broken bridge was worth a lot to a traveller. It could be the difference between a safe journey and a very bad one. You lean forward just a little bit, resting your chest against the edge of the table. You are not trying to be nosy, but it is hard not to listen. To your left, a man is talking about a road he walked 3 days ago. He says the rain has turned the path into a river of mud. He describes how his cart got stuck and how he had to pull the wheels out with his own hands. You can see the dried mud still clinging to the elbows of his brown tunic. His voice is tired, and he stops every few words to take a slow breath. You can almost feel the cold mud he is talking about. You can almost hear the wooden wheels of the cart groaning under the weight. Across from you, another traveller is speaking in a quiet voice. He is telling a story about a great forest many miles away. He says that the autumn leaves there are as bright as fire, but the shadows are deep and full of strange sounds. He talks about the way the wind moved through the tall oak trees, making them sound like they were whispering secrets to each other. You watch his mouth as he speaks. You see the way his lips move over the words. You watch the orange firelight catch the wetness on his teeth. It is a very slow thing to watch, and it makes you feel like you are drifting away into his story. You look at a man sitting 2 benches away. He is wearing a wide hat made of grey felt. Pinched to the side of his hat is your micro-history detail for this part of our journey, a lead pilgrim's badge. It is a small, flat piece of metal, about the size of a large coin. It is shaped like a tiny seashell. This badge shows everyone that he has travelled a long way to visit a holy place. The lead is a dull, soft grey colour, but the edges have been rubbed shiny by his fingers. He touches the badge whenever he speaks, as if it gives him strength. It is a tiny piece of history right there on his hat, a sign of all the miles he has walked and the cold nights he has spent under the stars. Now, you fall into a moment of atmospheric silence. You stop listening to the stories about mud and forests. You stop looking at the lead badge. You just look at the air in front of you. The blue smoke from the hearth is moving in a very slow circle. It looks like a ribbon of silk being pulled by a tiny invisible hand. You watch the smoke pass through a beam of light from a candle. Inside that light, you see thousands of tiny specks of dust. They are dancing. They move up and down, spinning in the warm air. They look like tiny, silent stars in a golden sky. You feel very calm watching them. The voices around you become a soft, fuzzy background sound. It feels as if the room is made of cotton wool and you are tucked deep inside it. You hear a soft clink from a table nearby. Someone is counting out small copper coins to pay for another cup of ale. The sound is sharp and clear against the low murmur of the room. You hear the rustle of a heavy woolen cloak as someone stands up to stretch. The fabric makes a dry, scratching sound. You hear the deep, wet cough of an old man sitting by the fire. Each sound has its own place in the night. It is like a piece of music that never ends. The news continues to flow around the table. A merchant is talking about the price of wool in the next town. He says that the colour of the sheep's coats this year is very fine and white. He speaks about the heavy bags of fleece he has hidden in his flat-bottomed boat by the river. You think about the soft, oily feel of raw wool. You think about the sound of the river moving against the wooden sides of the boat in the dark. The news is not just facts. It is full of sights and smells and feelings. It is how these people understand the world beyond their own little village. You realize that everyone here is a teacher, and everyone is a student. By the time the sun comes up tomorrow, you will know which roads are safe and which ones are blocked. You will know if there is a fair in the next village, or if the local lord has changed the rules about crossing the bridge. This information is your torch in the dark. It is what keeps you moving forward. You feel a quiet sense of honor being part of this circle. Even though you are a stranger, you are allowed to hear the secrets of the road. The heat from the fire is making your head feel a bit light. You lean your head on your hand, your fingers brushing against your hair. The air is so warm now that you can feel it on your eyelids. It feels like a warm cloth being pressed against your face. You watch the candle on your table. It has burned down a little more. The wax has pooled at the bottom, looking like a little white lake. You are very tired, but the stories keep you awake just a little longer. They are like a bridge that connects you to all the other people in the room. You are all travellers, and you're all sharing the same night. You take a slow, deep breath. The smell of the smoke and the ale is very familiar now. It no longer feels strange. It feels like the smell of the inn itself. You listen to one last story before you close your eyes for a second. It is a story about a dog that can find its way home through a snowstorm. The voice telling the story is soft and rhythmic. Step by step, the voice says, paw by paw. You feel your own heart beating in time with the words. The night shift is full of these small human moments. The voices are your company, and the news is your map. You sit in the golden light, a quiet listener in a world of storytellers, while the wind continues to blow across the dark, empty road outside. You remain on your bench, but your eyes leave the faces of the travellers and the flickering candle on the table. You begin to look down. You look at the ground beneath your heavy boots. In the world you come from, floors are usually flat, hard, and clean. They are made of smooth wood or shiny stone. But here in this medieval inn, the floor is part of the earth itself. It is not a separate thing built on top of the ground. It is the ground. A simple historical fact to hold in your mind is that most roadside inns did not have wooden floors. Wood was very expensive and hard to keep clean in a place where people walked in with mud on their shoes all day and night. Instead, the floor is made of packed earth. The innkeeper and their family took buckets of clay and soil and beat it down with heavy wooden mallets until it was as hard as a rock. In some places, where the light hits it just right, the dirt actually looks polished. like a dark chocolate brown stone. In other places, near the door where the rain blows in, it is a little bit soft and damp. You can see the faint print of your own boot heel in the soil. It is a small mark that shows you are here, a tiny part of the history of this room. Covering this hard dirt floor is a thick layer of rushes. These are long, thin green plants that grow in wet places near rivers. They are gathered in the summer and dried in the summer and dyed in the sun until they turn a pale straw yellow color. The act of putting them on the floor is called strewing. You look at the rushes around your feet. They are not laid down in a neat way. They are scattered in a messy, thick carpet. Some are long and straight, while others have been crushed into tiny bits by the thousands of feet that have walked across them today. You lean down a little and reach out a hand to touch a piece of the dried plant. This is your moment of atmospheric silence. You pick up a single yellow stalk. It feels dry and hollow, like a tiny straw. You snap it between your fingers, and it makes a small, sharp crick sound. In this quiet moment, you realize how much the floor hides. Underneath these rushes, there are years of stories. There are dropped crumbs of bread, tiny feathers from birds, and bits of wool from cloaks. The rushes trap everything. They are like a big, fuzzy net that catches the rubbish of the day. You watch a tiny bit of dust settle back into the yellow stalks. Everything is still. The floor feels very old, like it has been waiting for you to notice it. As you look closer at the floor near the wall, you see your microhistory detail for this part of our journey, a rushlight holder. It is a tall, thin stand made of dark, heavy iron. It has a little clip at the top that looks like a pair of bird's beaks. Clamped inside those beaks is a single rush that has been dipped in melted animal fat. This is a rushlight. It is the simplest and cheapest way to make light in the dark. It does not burn like a candle. It sizzles and pops. You can see a tiny bead of hot fat run down the side of the stalk and go hard as it cools. The light it gives is very small and blue, and it smells a little bit like cooking meat. It is a humble light for a humble floor, but it helps you see the textures of the world at your feet. You shift your weight on the bench and listen to the sound of the floor. When someone walks past you, the rushes make a deep shushing sound. Shh, crunch, shh, crunch. It is a soft, rhythmic noise that reminds you of the sea washing up on a sandy beach. It is much quieter than the sound of boots on a hard stone floor. The rushes soak up the noise of the room, making the voices feel a little bit further away. You think about the work it takes to keep this floor. Every now and then, when the rushes get too dirty or smell too much of spilled ale, the innkeeper has to sweep them all away. They use a big broom made of birch twigs to push the old brown plants out the door. Then they bring in fresh green ones that smell like the river and the sun. This is how the inn stays clean, even though it is made of dirt. It is a clever way to live. Instead of trying to keep the mud out, they just cover it up with something fresh. Near the corner of the room, the rushes are piled very high. This is where some of the travellers have pushed the plants together to make a soft spot to sit. You see a small grey cat curled up in a nest of yellow stalks. Its eyes are closed and its paws are tucked under its chin. The cat knows that the rushes are warm. They trap the heat from the fire and keep the cold of the earth away. You watch the cat's side move up and down as it breathes. It is perfectly happy on this floor of dirt and plants. You look at the way the orange firelight moves across the floor. The shadows of the rushes look like thousands of tiny, dark fingers reaching out. The floor is not flat. It has little hills and valleys where the dirt has worn away more in some spots than others. You can see where the main path is, from the door to the fire, because the ground there is smooth and dark. The places under the tables are lighter and have more whole rushes because fewer people walk there. Your boots feel very heavy as you rest them on the ground. You can feel the coldness of the earth coming through the leather, but it is not a mean cold. It is a solid, grounding feeling. You feel connected to the building and the land it sits on. There is no gap between you and the world. You are standing on the same soil that the trees grow in and the rain falls on. You take a slow breath and smell the earthy scent of the damp rushes. It is a green, herbal smell that cuts through the thick smoke of the room. You watch a single spark from the brazier land on a dry stalk. The spark glows for a second, a tiny red dot, and then it goes out without a sound. The floor is safe. The floor is quiet. You lean your head back against the stone wall and keep your eyes on the yellow carpet at your feet. The night shift is moving slowly, and the ground beneath you is as steady as the stars. You are just a traveller resting your feet on the earth, tucked away in the warm heart of the inn. You stand up slowly from the hard wooden bench. Your body feels heavy, as if the air in the room is pressing down on your shoulders. The warmth of the ale is still in your belly, but the time has come to make your stay official. In this world, you do not wait until the morning to pay for your bed. You pay before you sleep. This is because once the sun goes down and the doors are locked, the inn becomes a small, closed world. Everyone needs to know who belongs and who has paid their way. You reach down to your belt. There, hanging from a thin strip of leather, is your small money pouch. The leather is dark and soft, worn smooth by your fingers over many miles of walking. It smells of old oil and salt. You can feel the weight of it. It is not a large weight, but it is solid. You loosen the drawstring, and the leather opening gaps like a small mouth. You reach inside with your thumb and finger. The inside of the pouch is fuzzy and warm. You feel the cold, hard edges of the metal hidden within. You pull out a few small coins and hold them in the palm of your hand. This is your micro-history detail for this part of the night, a silver penny. This is the most common coin you would carry. It is not perfectly round like the coins you might know. It was made by hand, with a heavy hammer striking a piece of silver. Because of this, the edges are a bit wavy and uneven. On one side, you can see a tiny, simple face of a king with a crown. On the other side is a small cross. The coin is very thin, almost as thin as a dried leaf. It feels cold against your skin, a sharp contrast to the warm air of the room. You can see the firelight dancing on the dull grey surface of the metal. You begin to walk toward the counter where the innkeeper stands. The walk is slow. You have to navigate through the crowded room. You step over a pile of dry rushes, hearing that familiar crunch-crunch sound. You move around a man who is laughing loudly with his friends, his arm waving in the air. You pass the large stone hearth, and for a second, the heat is so strong, it feels like a physical push against your side. The orange light is very bright here, making your eyes squint. You can see the tiny sparks leaping up into the dark chimney like fireflies. Finally, you reach the counter. It is a thick slab of oak wood, polished by thousands of hands and stained dark by spilled drinks. The innkeeper is busy, but they see you coming. They do not smile. They do not frown. They simply watch you with calm, steady eyes. This is the moment of negotiation. There are no signs on the wall telling you the price of a night's rest. The price is something that lives in the mind of the innkeeper. It changes depending on who you are, what the weather is like, and how much room is left in the straw. You lay your silver pennies down on the wood, one by one. This is your moment of atmospheric silence. You do not speak. The innkeeper does not speak. The only sound is the tiny tink of the silver hitting the oak. Tink, tink, tink. You watch the coins as they sit there in a neat row. They look very small against the massive wooden counter. You see the innkeeper's hand reach out. Their fingers are thick and calloused, with skin that looks as tough as bark. They slide the coins across the wood toward themselves. The sound is a soft metallic scrape. They feel the weight of each penny, checking the metal without even looking at it. They are satisfied. A simple historical fact to remember is that this payment is like a silent contract. In these times, once an innkeeper took your money, they became legally responsible for you. If a thief came in the night and took your boots, or if you were hurt under their roof, the innkeeper could be taken to court. By taking your silver, they are promising to keep the door locked and the fire burning. They are promising that for this one night, you are under their protection. It is a heavy promise, and it is why they watch every traveller so closely. They are guarding their own reputation as much as your safety. You watch as the innkeeper takes a small knife from their belt. They pick up their tally stick, that piece of hazelwood you saw earlier. With a quick, practiced movement, they cut a fresh notch into the side. The wood is pale and clean inside the cut. This is the record of your stay. You feel a sense of relief wash over you. The deal is done. You are no longer just a stranger standing in a room. You are a guest. You have a right to the heat of the fire and the shelter of the walls. The innkeeper nods to you. It is a very small movement, but it tells you everything you need to know. They point a thick finger toward the far side of the room, away from the door and the draught. That is where the best straw is. That is where you will find your rest. You gather your pouch and pull the drawstring tight again. The sound of the leather rubbing together is a soft, comforting rustle. You feel lighter now. Even though you have just given away some of your silver, The uncertainty of the road has been replaced by the certainty of a roof. You turn away from the counter and look out of the room again. It looks different now that you have paid. The smoke doesn't seem quite as thick. The voices don't seem quite as loud. You are part of the house now. You see a young girl, the innkeeper's daughter, carrying a bucket of fresh water across the rushes. She moves quickly, her long woolen skirt swishing against the floor. You watch the way the light from the hearth catches the water, making it shimmer. Everything feels steady. You take a slow, deep breath. The air is warm and smells of old wood and silver. You feel the silver penny you have left in your pocket pressing against your leg. It is a small, cold comfort. You look toward the corner where the straw is piled high. It looks yellow and soft in the dim light. You are ready to go there. You are ready to let the innkeeper take over the watch. You have done your part. You have walked the miles. You have found the door. And you have paid the price. As you walk back toward your bench to gather your pack, you feel a deep sense of peace. The night shift is moving along its path. The fire is being fed. The doors are barred with heavy wooden beams. The world outside is cold and dark, but you have bought your way into the light. You are a traveler who has found a home for the night, and that is a very good thing to be. You take one last look at the innkeeper, who is already talking to the next person at the counter. The cycle of the night goes on, and you are tucked safely within it. You turn away from the counter, your money pouch feeling a little lighter against your hip. Your eyes follow the innkeeper's hand as they point toward the back of the room. There you see a narrow set of wooden stairs. They are steep and look a bit wobbly, disappearing up into the dark shadows near the roof. You watch a man, likely a merchant with a fine cloak of dark blue wool, begin to climb them. He moves slowly, one hand pressing against the wall to keep his balance. Each step he takes makes a loud, tired creak. He is going to one of the private chambers. In these times, having a room all to yourself was a very rare thing. A simple historical fact to keep in mind is that most people who stayed at an inn slept together in one big room. It did not matter if you were a stranger, you slept side by side. But if you had extra silver coins in your pouch, you could pay for a bit more peace. These private rooms were not like the ones we have today. They were often just small boxes made of thin wooden boards. They did not have thick walls to keep out the sound. If someone laughed downstairs, or if a dog barked outside, the merchant in his private room would hear it just as clearly as you do. You stand at the bottom of the room and look up at the floor above. This is your microhistory detail for this moment, a solar. In some bigger inns, the upstairs area was called a solar. It was a place built higher up to catch more of the light from the sun during the day, because it was away from the damp dirt floor and the smoke of the main fire. It was considered a very grand place to be. You can see the underside of the floorboards above you. They are thick planks of oak, darkened by the soot of the fire. You see a tiny bit of dust fall through a gap between two boards. It drifts down like a single flake of grey snow, dancing in the orange light before landing in the rushes at your feet. You watch the merchant reach the top of the stairs. He opens a small wooden door. It makes a sharp, dry squeak that cuts through the low hum of the voices below. For a second, you see a flicker of a smaller candle inside his room, and then the door shuts. He is alone now, or as alone as anyone can be in a house full of people. You imagine him taking off his heavy leather boots and laying his fine cloak over a small wooden bed. Even though his room is tiny and the walls are thin, he has a little bit of space that is just his. It is a quiet thought in a loud room. You fall into a moment of atmospheric silence as you look at the staircase. The shadows up there are very deep. They look like soft black velvet. You watch the way the smoke from the big fire rises and hits the ceiling, curling around the wooden beams like a sleepy snake. The air up there is probably very warm and very thick, with the smell of the thatch roof. You listen to the sound of the merchant's footsteps above your head. Thump, thump, thump. The sound is muffled by the wood, making it feel distant and strange. It is a reminder that even though everyone is under the same roof, everyone's journey is a little bit different. You think about the locks on those doors. They were often just simple wooden latches or heavy iron bolts. Privacy in the medieval world was not just about being alone, it was about safety. A door that could be bolted from the inside was a great comfort when you were carrying a bag of silver or expensive spices. You look at your own pack, sitting on the bench. You do not have a private room with a bolt, but you have the watch of the innkeeper and the company of the other travellers. There is a different kind of safety in numbers. The light from the fire doesn't reach the top of the stairs very well. The wood there looks almost purple in the dimness. You see a spider web stretching from a beam to the wall, glowing like a silver thread where a tiny bit of light hits it. It is perfectly still. No wind reaches that high corner of the room. It feels like a secret place away from the mud and the noise of the road. You realize that even the richest merchant isn't truly away from the inn. He will still smell the ale and the roasting meat. He will still hear the songs and the clatter of the cups. The inn is one single living thing. It breathes through the cracks in the floor and the gaps in the walls. Whether you are in the straw on the dirt floor or in a bed in the solar, you are part of the night shift. You are all waiting for the sun to come back together. You turn your back on the stairs. You are not a merchant with a blue cloak, and you do not need a private chamber tonight. There is something comforting about staying down here, near the warmth of the great hearth. You look at the straw piled in the corner, glowing a soft yellow. It looks inviting. It looks like a place where a tired body can finally stop being a traveller. You feel the weight of your own fatigue pressing behind your eyes. You take a slow, deep breath. The air is thick and warm, and it tastes of the fire. You watch the innkeeper move toward the stairs to check a lamp hanging on the wall. The rattle of their keys is a sharp, metallic sound. Clink, clink. It is the sound of the house being minded. You feel a sense of honour in being a guest here, even a humble one. You have paid your penny, and you have earned your spot. You walk back toward the straw, feeling the soft crunch of the rushes under your boots. The merchant is in his room, and you are in yours. The night is moving forward, and the inn is holding everyone safe in its thick stone arms. The shadows are long, the fire is steady, and you are almost ready to close your eyes. You stand up from the heavy table, and the move feels slow. Your body is heavy, like it is filled with wet sand. You pick up your pack from the dirt floor. It feels like it has grown in weight since you first walked through the door. The leather straps are cool and smooth in your hands. You do not look for a soft mattress or a room with a lock. You look for the corner of the room where the light is dim and the noise is a little bit softer. This is where the straw is kept. You walk across the room and your boots make a deep crunch sound in the rushes. The heat from the fire is still on your back, but as you move away from the hearth, you can feel the cool air of the corners. This part of the inn is for rest. It is a simple place. You see a large pile of straw spread out along the far wall. It is not in neat bags, it is just scattered across the hard earth. In this time, this was how most people found their rest. A simple historical fact to remember is that most travellers did not have a bed of their own. Even in a house for guests, you would often find one very long, low wooden box filled with straw. This was a communal bed. It could hold 10 or even 20 people all in a row. You did not know the person sleeping next to you, but you shared the warmth of the straw together. Tonight the inn is not so full that you must climb into a shared box. You have found a space on the floor against the stone wall. You reach the pile of straw and stop. You stand there for a moment, just looking at it. This is your moment of atmospheric silence. The fire in the middle of the room is burning lower now, and the orange light is very soft. It hits the straw and turns it into a sea of gold. You watch the way the shadows of the stalks move. They look like tiny, thin spiders dancing. Everything is very quiet in this corner. You can hear the steady breathing of a man already asleep a few feet away. It is a slow, rhythmic sound. In, out, in, out, in, out. You listen to the sound of the building. The wood in the roof makes a tiny creak as it cools down in the night air. For a heartbeat, you feel like the only person awake in the whole world. You feel very safe and very tucked away. You reach down and touch the straw. It is dry and crisp. This brings us to your micro-history detail for the night. Mixed in with the yellow straw are small, dried yellow flowers. This part is called ladies' bedstraw. People in these times were very clever. They knew that sleeping in old straw could be itchy or smell a bit like dust. So they gathered these tiny yellow flowers from the fields in the summer. When the flowers dry, they smell just like fresh hay and sweet honey. More importantly, the smell of these flowers keeps away the tiny biting bugs that like to live in old beds. You pick up a small bunch of the dried flowers and rub them between your fingers. The smell is wonderful. It's the smell of a warm summer afternoon hidden inside a cold autumn night. You can feel the tiny, brittle leaves crumbling into soft powder in your hand. You move your pack against the wall. The wall is made of stone and thick timber. It feels very solid. You lean back against it and slowly let your body sink down into the straw. The sound is loud in the quiet corner. Crinkle, crunch, snap. The straw is bouncy. It holds your weight and then gives way. molding itself around your legs and your back. You shift a little to the left, then a little to the right. Each move makes a new rustling sound. It sounds like the wind moving through a field of corn. You find a spot where the straw is thick and deep. You pull a large armful of it toward your sides to make a little nest. The wall behind you is cold, but it feels good against your warm back. You can feel the rough texture of the stones through your wall tunic. Some of the stones are smooth, and some are bumpy. You find a flat spot for your head. You reach for the heavy grey blanket you were given at the counter. It is made of thick wool that has not been scrubbed too much, so it still has the natural oils from the sheep. This makes it very heavy and very warm. You shake it out, and a tiny cloud of dust dances in the dim light. You pull the blanket up over your legs, then over your chest, all the way to your chin. The wool is scratchy against your skin, but it is a good kind of scratchy. It feels strong and protective. Beneath the blanket, the heat from your body starts to fill up the spaces between the straw. It happens very quickly. Within a minute, you are in a little pocket of warmth. You look out at the rest of the inn from your spot on the floor. From down here, the room looks very big. The tables look like tall wooden giants. The fire in the hearth is just a soft red glow now. The people still sitting there look like dark shapes against the light. You feel a sense of pride in your little spot. It is not much, but it is yours for the night. You have found a place where the world cannot touch you. The cold wind outside is still blowing. You can hear it whistling through the thatch of the roof, but it feels like it is 1,000 miles away. You are tucked into the earth, surrounded by the smell of honey-sweet flowers and the soft rustle of the hay. Your heart begins to beat more slowly. Your heart begins to beat more slowly. Your eyes feel very heavy. The orange light of the fire seems to blink at you, getting dimmer and dimmer. You run your hand over the straw one more time. You feel the thin, hollow tubes of the grass. They are so simple, yet they are what keep you away from the cold dirt floor. You think about the people who cut this grass with their long scythes in the sun. You think about the hands that carried it here. Everything in this room has a story. The wall, the blanket, the straw, and you. You are now part of the night shift. You are the watcher in the corner, resting your head while the house stays awake. You close your eyes, and the last thing you hear is the soft, shushing sound of the straw as you take one final, deep breath. The night is deep, and your bed is ready. You reach for the edge of the blanket you were given at the counter. It is a large, heavy piece of fabric. As you pull it over your body, you can feel the true weight of it. This is not like the light, soft covers you might know from your own time. This is a blanket made of raw wool, woven by hand on a wooden loom. It is a deep, dusty grey colour, the colour of a storm cloud. As you lift it, a faint smell of wood smoke and old lanolin, the natural oil from a sheep's coat, wafts up to meet you. This is your micro-history detail for this quiet moment, the wadmal. In these times, this thick, water-resistant wool was used for everything. It was so strong and heavy that it was sometimes used to pay taxes. It feels scratchy against your hands, but it is the kind of scratchy that promises to keep you very warm. You tuck the edges of the blanket under your feet, then wrap it tightly around your shoulders. The wool is so thick that it feels like wearing a coat while you sleep. You can feel the heat from your own skin being trapped beneath the fabric. It happens almost instantly. The soft glow of warmth spreads across your legs and up your back. You pull the top edge of the blanket up until it touches your chin. The wool is a little bit rough, but it feels solid and safe. It is like a heavy shield between you and the cool air of the common room. As you lie there, you fall into a moment of atmospheric silence. The fire in the hearth is a little further away now, but you can still see the orange light dancing on the wall across from you. You watch the shadows move. Because the blanket is so heavy, you feel very anchored to the ground. You stop hearing the individual voices of the people near the fire. Instead, you hear the house itself. You hear the soft, rhythmic thud-thud of the wind hitting the thick stone walls. You hear the dry straw of the roof rustling as the air moves through it. It sounds like 1,000 tiny voices whispering together. In this moment, you feel very small but very protected. You are a tiny spark of life tucked inside a big, heavy blanket of wool and stone. A simple historical fact to remember is that in medieval Europe, blankets were precious things. A good woolen cover like the one you are holding was expensive. It took a long time to shear the sheep, spin the wool into thread, and weave it into a cloth. Many poor travellers would carry their own thin cloak and nothing else, shivering through the night. Having a heavy blanket like this, provided by the innkeeper, is a sign that you are in a good house. It is a sign that your silver penny was well spent. You shift your weight in the straw, hearing that crisp crackle beneath the grey wool. You find that the blanket is big enough to double over. You fold the extra length over your chest, adding a second layer of warmth. You can feel the weight of the wool pressing down on your lungs, making your breathing slow and steady. In, out, in, out. The scratchy texture of the fabric starts to feel comforting, like a familiar hand resting on your shoulder. You look down and see the weave of the wool in the dim orange light. The threads are thick and uneven, showing where the person who made it worked through the long winter nights. The room is getting darker now. The innkeeper has gone around and put out many of the small candles. Only the red glow of the fire and one or two rushlights remain. The grey of your blanket fades into the shadows until it is almost black. You feel like you are disappearing into the corner. No one can see you here. You are just a shape in the straw, wrapped in wool. This feeling of being hidden is very good. On the road, you are always watching, always looking over your shoulder. But here, under the heavy grey wadmal, you can finally stop watching. You can let your eyes close. You feel the cold air of the room touching the tip of your nose, but the rest of you is in a private world of heat. You think about the sheep that gave this wool, standing on a green hillside in the rain. You think about the spinning wheel turning round and round. Every thread in this blanket was made by someone's hands. It is a very human thing to be wrapped in. It connects you to the people of this land in a way that words cannot. You pull your arms in close to your chest, tucking your hands into the folds of the blanket. Your fingers, which were so cold and stiff just an hour ago, are now warm and soft. You feel the tension leaving your neck. You let your head sink back into the straw, which you have piled up to make a small pillow. The crinkle of the hay is loud in your ear, but is a soothing sound. It is the sound of rest. The night shift is still moving. You can hear the innkeeper's heavy boots walking across the dirt floor one last time. You hear the wooden bolt of the door being checked. Clack. It is locked. The world is shut out. You are in your nest of straw and grey wool. The air is warm, the blanket is heavy, and your heart is calm. You take one last deep breath, smelling the clean, earthy scent of the wool. You are no longer a traveller. You are a sleeper. The road will be there tomorrow, but for now, there is only the weight of the blanket and the soft orange glow of the dying fire. You let go of the day, and the night takes you in. You sit back up for a moment, the heavy grey wool blanket sliding down to your waist. The air in the corner is a bit cooler than the air near the hearth, but a new smell is pulling you toward the centre of the room. It is a thick, rich smell that makes your stomach give a loud, hungry growl. It is the scent of the evening meal. In the medieval inn, food is not something you order from a list. There is usually only one big meal made for everyone. A simple historical fact to remember is that this meal was called the pottage. It was the main food for almost everyone, from the king in his castle to the traveller in the straw. It was a thick stew that sat in a giant iron pot over the fire all day long, with new things added to it whenever they were found. You move back toward the long wooden table. Your legs feel a bit like jelly after sitting in the straw, but the smell of the steam gives you strength. The innkeeper's wife is standing by the great stone hearth. She uses a thick cloth to lift a heavy iron pot from a hook over the flames. The pot is black with soot and has 3 little legs. She sets it down on a flat stone in the middle of the table. A huge cloud of white steam rises up, hitting the dark beams of the ceiling and making the air smell of onions, peas, and salty bacon. There are no private plates here. Instead, you see your microhistory detail for this meal, a trencher. This is a large, flat piece of bread that is very hard and stale. It is not meant to be eaten right away. It is used as a plate. The thick stew is poured right onto the bread. The bread is so dry that it soaks up all the juices from the meat and the vegetables without falling apart. You look at the brown crust of the bread. It is rough and bumpy, like the bark of a tree. You feel the weight of the stew pressing down on it, making the bread go soft and warm in the middle. You sit with 3 other travellers around the pot. No one says a word at first. This is your moment of atmospheric silence. You all look at the steam rising in the orange light. You watch a single piece of bright green leek floating in the thick brown gravy. The steam feels wet and warm on your face, like a soft cloth. You can hear the fire popping behind you and the steady slurp of someone already eating at the far end of the bench. In this quiet moment, the food is the most important thing in the world. You are not a stranger or a merchant. You are just a hungry person sharing a meal with other hungry people. The shared steam connects you all in a quiet circle of warmth. You pick up your horn spoon. It feels light and smooth in your hand. You dip it into the thick stew on your bread plate. The pottage is full of good things. You find soft grey peas, little white onions, and chunks of salted pork that have been cooked until they almost fall apart. The first spoonful is very hot. You have to blow on it, your breath making a little path through the steam. When you taste it, the flavour is simple and strong. It tastes of salt, smoke, and the earth. It is not fancy, but it is very filling. It feels heavy in your mouth, a solid weight that tells your body the day is truly over. As you eat, the people around you start to move their spoons in a slow rhythm. Dip, lift, blow, eat. No one is in a hurry. You watch the man next to you. He has big, rough hands with dirt under his nails. He uses a small piece of dark bread to wipe up a spill of gravy from his trencher. He eats the bread with a slow, happy chew. You do the same. You find a bit of the pork. It is chewy and very salty, but it tastes wonderful after a day of nothing but cold air. The salt makes you want more of the ale, and you take a small sip from your wooden mazer to wash the food down. A quirky thing about this meal is the sharing of the pot. Even though you have your own bread plate, the big iron pot stays in the middle. Sometimes people will reach in with their own spoons to get a bit more of the thickest part at the bottom. It is a very close way to live. You can see the steam from the other people's breath mixing with the steam from the food. You are all breathing the same warm onion-scented air. It makes you feel less alone. On the road, the world is big and empty. But here, around the pottage pot, the world is small and friendly. The heat from the stew starts to work its way through your body. You can feel your stomach getting tight and full. The tired ache in your muscles starts to turn into a soft, lazy feeling. You look at the bread trencher. It has soaked up so much of the gravy that it has turned a deep, dark brown. It looks soft and delicious. Some people give their soaked bread to the dogs or the poor at the door, but you are very hungry. You tear off a corner of the gravy-soaked bread. It is heavy and wet, and it tastes like all the best parts of the stew. It is the best part of the meal. You look at the fire again. The orange flames are reflecting in the dark gravy inside the pot. It looks like a little pool of liquid fire. You watch a bubble rise to the surface of the stew and go pop, sending a tiny spray of heat into the air. The room is getting noisier again as people finish their food and start to talk more. But your little group stays quiet. You are all focusing on the work of eating. Every bite makes the cold road feel further away. Every spoonful makes the straw bed in the corner look more inviting. You finish the last bit of your bread plate. Your fingers are a little bit sticky from the gravy. You wipe them on a piece of dry straw from the floor. You feel very heavy now, in a good way. You are like a bear getting ready for winter. Your belly is full of warm peas, salt pork, and good bread. You lean back and let out a long, slow sigh. The traveller across from you looks at you and gives a small, tired smile. He knows exactly how you feel. You are both part of the night shift, and the night shift is better when your stomach is full. The innkeeper's wife comes back and picks up the empty iron pot. It makes a dry, scraping sound on the table. She carries it back to the hearth to be cleaned for the next day. You watch her go. The orange light catching the white of her apron. You feel a deep sense of peace. The meal is over. The day is done. You have had the warmth of the fire and the strength of the pottage. You stand up slowly, your body feeling much warmer than it did before. You walk back toward your corner, your boots making a soft thump on the dirt. You are ready to crawl back under your heavy grey blanket. The world is dark and cold outside, but inside you there is a warm fire of your own, built from a simple bowl of stew and the company of strangers. You crawl back into your nest of straw, the warmth from the thick stew still glowing in your chest. The fire in the middle of the room is the only thing that keeps the shadows from swallowing you whole. You lie on your side and watch the great stone hearth. This is the heart of the inn. It is not just a place for light, it is the machine that keeps everyone alive. In this time, the fire is never really allowed to die. A simple historical fact to remember is that making a fire from nothing was very hard work. There were no matches to strike. If the fire went out, someone would have to use a piece of flint and steel to make a tiny spark, or run to a neighbour's house to borrow a glowing coal. So, the innkeeper makes sure the fire stays awake even when the rest of the world is sleeping. You watch as the innkeeper moves toward the flames. He carries a heavy log of oak wood in his arms. You can see the rough bark of the wood, grey and mossy. He leans over and places the log carefully onto the glowing red bed of coals. As the wood hits the heat, you hear a loud, sharp crack. It sounds like a small bone snapping. Then there is a deep hiss as the last bit of sap inside the wood begins to boil. A tiny puff of white steam escapes from the end of the log, dancing for a second before it turns into flame. The light in the room changes. For a few minutes the orange glow gets much brighter. You can see the individual stones that make up the hearth. They are large, flat stones gathered from the river. Over many years, the heat has turned them black and cracked them in places. You see the iron tools leaning against the stone-along poker and the pair of heavy tongs. This is your microhistory detail for this moment, a fire dog. These are two iron stands that sit inside the fireplace. They have little heads that look like hounds. They hold the logs up so that the air can move underneath the wood. Without the fire dogs, the heavy logs would squash the coals and the fire would choke. You watch the orange light flicker on the iron dog's head, making it look like it is watching the room with glowing eyes. Now you fall into a moment of atmospheric silence. You stop looking at the innkeeper and just watch the flames. There are many colours: bright yellow at the top, deep orange in the middle, and a tiny bit of blue right at the bottom where they touch the wood. You watch a single spark fly up. It is a tiny, glowing dot. It swirls in the hot air, moving in a circle, and then it is pulled up into the dark throat of the chimney. You follow it with your eyes until it disappears into the blackness. The sound of the fire is very steady. It is a soft, rhythmic pop and crackle. It sounds like the earth is whispering to you. You feel very calm. The movement of the flames is like a dance that never ends. It pulls all the busy thoughts out of your head and replaces them with a quiet, golden hum. You feel the heat on your face. It is a dry, pulsing heat. It feels different from the wet warmth of the stew. This is a heat that reaches deep into your skin and makes your tired muscles feel loose and soft. You look at the other travellers around the fire. Their faces are lit from below, making their features look sharp and strong. You see the shadow of a man's nose stretching up toward his forehead. You see the way the light catches the moving eyes of the dog sleeping by the hearth. The dog's fur is brown and rough, but in the firelight it looks like it is made of copper. The chimney is a great wide opening made of stone. You can see the soot hanging from the sides like black velvet. This soot is the memory of 1,000 fires. It smells of old winter and burnt pine. Every now and then, a bit of the soot falls down and landed in the coals with a tiny fizz. You think about how the fire keeps the darkness away. Outside the thick stone walls, the night is huge. It stretches over the hills and the forests, cold and silent. But here, the hearth creates a circle of safety. Within this light, you are a person with a name and a place. Outside, you would just be a shadow in the wind. The innkeeper takes the long iron poker and stirs the coals. This is a loud scraping sound. Scritch, scrape. A cloud of tiny orange embers rises into the air, swirling like a swarm of golden bees. The fire starts to roar a little louder. You can feel the heat grow stronger for a moment, pressing against your blanket. It is a comforting pressure. It feels like the house is breathing on you. You pull your hands out from under the wall for a second, just to feel the warm air on your skin. Your fingers look orange and glowing. As you lie there, you realize that the fire is the clock of the inn. When the logs are big and the flames are high, it is still the time for talking and eating. When the fire burns down to red coals and the logs turn to white ash, it is the time for deep sleep. You watch the new logs start to turn black. Tiny lines of fire run along the grain of the wood like glowing rivers. The bark starts to peel away in little curls. You feel your own energy fading along with the bright flames. The world is narrowing down to just you, the straw, and the glowing heart of the stone hearth. You take a slow breath. The air is dry and smells of oak smoke and warmth. You are very close to sleep now. The pop of the fire is the last thing you hear before your eyes close for good. It is a friendly sound. It is the sound of the house staying awake to keep you warm. You feel the heavy wool of the blanket and the soft rustle of the straw. The orange light is still there, even behind your closed eyelids. You are safe in the night shift, watched over by the iron dogs and the ancient stones of the hearth. The fire will keep burning, and you will keep dreaming, tucked away in the golden heart of the medieval night. The fire in the hearth has settled into a steady, rhythmic pulse of light. The large oak log is now covered in a delicate web of glowing red lines. Most of the people in the room have stopped talking, but the silence is not empty. It is filled with the small, soft sounds of the night. Then, from the shadows near the far wall, a new sound begins. It is a thin, clear note that vibrates through the warm air. Someone is singing. It is not a loud song meant to make people dance or shout. It is a slow, quiet melody that feels as old as the stones of the inn. The singer is a traveller you noticed earlier, a man with a weathered face and a simple green tunic. He is sitting on a low stool, his back against a timber beam. He is not looking at anyone. His eyes are fixed on the glowing embers of the fire. His voice is deep and a little bit gravelly, but it carries a sweetness that makes you stay very still. The song has no words that you can clearly understand. Perhaps it is in an old tongue from the high mountains or the distant coast. It does not matter. The feeling of the song is what reaches you. It sounds like the wind moving through autumn leaves. It sounds like the steady beat of waves against a wooden boat. In this time, music was one of the few ways stories and feelings can move from one place to another. A simple historical fact is that tunes often travelled faster than people. A melody learned in a small village in the south might be heard weeks later in a cold northern town, carried there by a traveller just like this man. There were no books of music for most people. Songs lived only in the breath and memory of the singers. Because of this, every time a song was sung, it changed just a little bit, like a stone being smoothed by a river. You lie in your straw and listen. This is your moment of atmospheric silence. You let the notes of the song wash over you. The music seems to catch the blue smoke in the air and pull it into patterns. You watch the way the orange light from the hearth hits the singer's throat as he moves through the low notes. The room feels very large and very old. You think about how many hundreds of years people have sat in rooms just like this, listening to the same kind of tired, beautiful music at the end of a long day. The song makes the walls of the inn feel like they are protecting you from the vast, dark world outside. It turns the common room into a shared dream. As the man sings, you see a small object resting on his lap. This is your microhistory detail, a gittern. It is a small, wooden instrument shaped a bit like a pear. It is carved from a single block of walnut wood, and it has 4 strings made of twisted gut. The wood is dark and has a soft shine from the oil of the singer's hands. He is not strumming it loudly. He is only plucking a single string every now and then to keep the rhythm. The sound of the string is a sharp, silvery twang that cuts through the hum of the fire. It is a fragile sound, but it fills the spaces between his words. You can see the tiny carved rose in the center of the wood, where the sound comes out. It is a beautiful, delicate thing in a room full of rough stone and heavy timber. The song changes pace. It gets a little bit lower and slower. You feel the vibration of the music in the floor beneath your straw. It is a very faint trembling, like the purr of a large cat. You see other travellers leaning their heads back against the walls. Some have closed their eyes. One woman near the fire is humming along, a tiny golden sound that stays behind her teeth. No one is moving. Even the innkeeper has stopped his work for a moment, leaning his elbows on the counter and letting his keys go still. For these few minutes, everyone in the inn is equal. You are all just listeners, held together by a few notes of music in the dark. The heat from the hearth seems to move in time with the song. Every time the singer reaches a high note, you imagine the flames jumping higher. Every time his voice drops low, the shadows seem to creep further across the dirt floor. The smell of the room, the ale, the smoke, the wet wool starts to feel like a part of the music. It is a heavy, comforting mix. You feel a deep sense of peace. The road you walked today was full of hard work and cold wind, but this song is the reward. It is a bridge between the day that is finished and the sleep that is coming. The singer finishes a long, trailing note. The sound stays in the air for a second, then fades away into the rafters. The silence that follows is very heavy and very sweet. No one claps their hands. That is not the way of the inn. Instead, there are a few quiet sighs, and the sound of people shifting in the straw. The man with the gittern sets his instrument down carefully on a piece of woolen cloth. He gives a small nod to the fire and goes back to his own thoughts. The moment is over, but the feeling of the music stays in your bones. You pull your grey blanket a little higher. Your ears are still ringing with the silver sound of the strings. You think about how lucky you are to have heard that song. Tomorrow that man will walk one way, and you will walk another. You may never hear those notes again, but tonight you shared them. You shared a piece of his memory and a piece of his heart. It is a fine thing to have in a world that can often be cold and lonely. The fire pops one last time, a sharp crack that signals the end of the evening. The orange light is getting dimmer. You can hear the wind outside again, but it doesn't sound as scary as it did before. The sun has made the night feel smaller and more friendly. You take a slow, deep breath, smelling the sweet scent of the dry rushes and the cooling wood. You feel a great weight of sleep pressing down on you. The night shift is quiet now. The music is gone, but the peace remains. You close your eyes, letting the ghost of the melody carry you down into the deep, dark straw. You lie in the straw, but even as your eyes grow heavy, a part of your mind stays awake. Out here, on the edge of the world, your belongings are more than just things. They are your life. Your pack, which you have carried for many miles, sits right next to your head. You can feel the rough texture of the leather against your ear. In the medieval inn, you learn a very important lesson. You must be the guard of your own treasures. A simple historical fact to remember is that while the innkeeper is responsible for your safety, the room is full of strangers. People come and go in the dark. A pair of sturdy boots or a sharp knife is worth a lot of silver to someone who has nothing. Because of this, you do not leave your bag in a corner. You keep it so close that you can feel its heartbeat against yours. You reach out a hand from under the heavy grey blanket. Your fingers find the thick leather of your pack. It feels cool and slightly damp from the long day on the road. You pull the bag closer until it is tucked right into the curve of your stomach. You move the straw around it so the bag is hidden from view. This is your moment of atmospheric silence. You lie perfectly still, with your hand resting on the iron buckle of the pack. You listen to the sounds of the room. You hear the slow, deep breathing of the travellers near you. You hear the fire settling into the ash. In this quiet moment, you are very aware of the things you own. You can feel the shape of your spare woolen socks inside the bag. You feel the hard lump of a small wooden box where you keep a bit of salt. These things are simple, but they are yours. Holding them makes you feel solid in a room where everything else is shifting shadows. Your fingers trace the edge of a strap, and you feel something small and hard tucked into a hidden fold of the leather. This is your micro-history detail for this part of the night, a pocket dial. Long before people had watches on their wrists, they used these tiny tools to tell the time using the sun. It is a small circle made of brass, no bigger than a large plum. It has a tiny hole in the side, and numbers scratched into the metal. When the sun shines through the hole, a spot of light lands on the number to tell you the hour. Now, in the dark of the inn, the brass is cold and silent. You rub your thumb over the smooth metal. You can feel the tiny scratches and marks on the surface. It is a clever, beautiful thing. It is your way of knowing how much of the day is left when you're out on the lonely road. You make sure it is tucked deep into the bag where no stray hand can find it. You think about the way you've packed your bag. The heaviest things, like your spare shoes and your thickest tunic, are at the bottom. Your food and your small knife are at the top, where you can reach them quickly. You have wrapped your things in pieces of oiled cloth to keep them dry when it rains. You can smell the faint sharp scent of the oil even now. It smells like old flax and clean earth. This bag is your home. Everything you need to survive is inside this circle of leather. Protecting it is not just about the money. It is about being able to keep walking tomorrow. The orange light from the fire is very low now. It makes the buckles on your pack look like tiny, glowing eyes. You watch the way the light catches the iron. It is a dull, honest glow. You listen to the innkeeper moving one last time near the door. You hear the heavy wooden bolts slide into place. Shh. Thump. The door is fast. No one is coming in and no one is going out until the sun rises. This sound makes you feel much better. You let out a long, slow breath, and you can see it turn into a tiny mist in the cooling air. You realize that everyone in the room is doing the same thing. Look around in the dim light, and you see shadows hugging their bundles. A merchant has his head resting right on top of his bag of wool. A young man has his walking staff tucked under his arm like a sword. This is how the night shift works. You trust the roof, you trust the fire, but you keep a hand on your own world. It is a quiet kind of watchfulness that stays with you even when you start to dream. You pull the wool blanket a little tighter, tucking it under the edge of the pack. The scratchy fabric feels good against your hand. The smell of the dry rushes is very strong here on the floor. It is a dusty, grassy scent that reminds you of summer fields. You feel the hard earth beneath the straw pressing against your hip. You shift your weight, and the straw makes a loud crackle crunch in the silence. You freeze for a second. listening to see if anyone else has woken up. But the room stays quiet. The only sound is the wind outside, pushing against the stone walls. You are very tired now, your eyes close, and you feel the weight of the day finally start to lift. But your hand stays on the leather strap. It is a habit of the road. Even in your sleep, you will know if the bag moves. You will know if someone steps too close to your corner. This is your small piece of the world, and you are its guardian. You feel the warmth of the fire in your bones, the weight of the wool on your chest, and the solid shape of your pack against your side. You are ready to let the night take you. The stories have been told, the ale has been drunk, and the watch is set. You sink deep into the golden straw, a quiet traveller guarding his journey in the heart of the medieval night. The fire has burned down to a pile of glowing red jewels. The room is now very dark, and the air has become thick and still. You are lying deep in the straw, and you can feel the night pressing against the outside of the inn. It is a very strange feeling. Outside, the air is moving and the stars are cold, but in here, the air feels like it is standing still. It is heavy with the scent of the day. You breathe in slowly, and you can feel the warmth of the room right at the back of your throat. It tastes of wood ash and old wool and the ghost of the ale. This is the deep middle of the night, and you are part of the house now. You lie very still, and you notice how the air feels on the small patch of skin on your face that is not covered by the blanket. It is not cold, but it is not hot either. It is a soft, heavy warmth that feels like a velvet cloth. This is your moment of atmospheric silence. You do not move a single finger. You listen to the sound of the silence. It is not empty. It is made of many tiny sounds that have joined together. You hear the slow, deep heartbeat of the building. You hear the tiny tick-click of the cooling stones in the hearth. You hear the way the air moves through the gaps in the heavy wooden shutters. It is a peaceful sound, like the house is breathing along with you. You feel as if you are inside a great wooden chest that has been locked for the night. You are tucked away from the world, and for a few hours, time does not move at all. As you look up into the darkness, you see something hanging from one of the great beams above. This is your micro-history detail for this quiet hour. A dried pomander. It is a small orange that has been stuck full of brown cloves and rolled in sweet spices. It hangs from a thin piece of string. In these times, people believed that bad smells could carry sickness. To keep the air sweet and safe, they hung these spicy balls in the rafters. The smell is very faint now, but as the warm air rises from the fire, it carries a tiny hint of cinnamon and cloves toward your nose. It is a sharp, clean smell that cuts through the heavy air of the common room. You watch it sway just a little bit in a draught, a dark circle against the slightly lighter shadows of the thatch. A simple historical fact to remember is that the air in a medieval inn was very different from the air in a modern house. There were no fans to move the air and no machines to clean it. The smoke from the fire and the breath of 30 people stayed in the room. This is why the ceilings were often built very high with big, open spaces between the beams. The bad air and the smoke would rise up and sit near the roof, leaving the cooler, fresher air down near the floor where you are sleeping. The people of the past understood how to live with the smoke. They knew that staying low to the ground was the best way to find the clear breath. You feel the weight of the air on your chest. It feels like a gentle hand pressing down on you, telling you it is time to rest. You look toward the center of the room. The brazier, that metal pan of coals, is still glowing, a dull, dark red. It looks like a sleeping eye. Every now and then, a tiny bit of grey ash falls away from a coal, and for a second, the light gets a little brighter. You watch the way the red light hits the edge of a wooden table. The wood looks like it is made of dark blood. Then the light fades, and the table becomes a shadow again. You think about the people sleeping all around you. You cannot see them now, but you can hear them. To your right, a man let out a long, soft mumble in his sleep. To your left, someone turns over in the straw, making a loud crinkle-snap sound. In the dark, these people do not feel like strangers. They feel like brothers and sisters. You're all sharing the same air. You are all breathing the same smoke. There is a deep feeling of honor in this. You are part of a small tribe of travelers, all hiding from the dark together. You are safe because they are there, and they are safe because you are there. The smell of the room changes as the night goes on. The sweet scent of the pomander fades, and the smell of the dry rushes on the floor becomes stronger. It is a dusty, grassy smell. It reminds you of the fields in the summer when the sun is very hot. You run your hand over the straw near your face. It feels brittle and thin. You think about how this floor is made of things from the earth, dirt, and plants. It feels very natural to be lying here. You are not separated from the world by fancy rugs or polished boards. You are resting on the very skin of the land. You feel a deep sense of peace. The road you walked today was full of noise and wind and hard work. But the night shift is quiet. The air is still, and the house is fast. You listen to the wind outside. It has grown stronger, and you can hear it thumping against the thick stone walls. Boom, boom. It sounds like someone is knocking on the door with a giant fist. But the walls are strong. They were built to stand against the storms of 100 winters. You feel the solid stone behind your head, and you know the wind cannot get in. You are in a bubble of warmth and stillness. The darkness is very thick now. If you held up your hand in front of your face, you would only see a shadow. This makes your other senses feel sharper. You can feel the texture of the grey wool blanket against your chin. You can feel the tiny bits of hay poking through your tunic. You can hear the sound of your own heart, a slow and steady thump, thump, thump. You are very close to the edge of sleep. The world is narrowing down to just the air you breathe and the warmth under your blanket. You take one last, slow breath. The spicy scent of the cloves and the earthy smell of the straw mix together in your nose. It is a good smell. It is the smell of the night shift. You feel your muscles go completely soft. Your head feels very heavy in the straw. The red glow of the coals is the last thing you see before your eyelids close for the final time. You are tucked away in the warm, still heart of the medieval inn. The air is heavy, the house is silent, and you are ready to drift away into the deep, dark night. Your eyes are very heavy now. It feels like tiny weights are pulling on your eyelids, urging them to stay shut. You have done so much today. You have walked through the mud. You have carried your heavy bag, and you have fought the cold wind. Now the warmth of the inn is like a soft hand pressing you down into the straw. You do not fight it. You let your head sink back into the golden stalks. The straw makes a soft, dry crinkle under your ear. It sounds like the world is whispering a secret just for you. The darkness in the room is thick and soft. It is not like the scary dark of the road. It is a friendly dark. The only light left is a very tiny, deep red glow from the heart of the hearth. It looks like a single, sleepy coal that is slowly turning to grey ash. You watch it for a moment. This is your moment of atmospheric silence. You do not think about tomorrow. You do not think about the miles you have to walk. You just listen to the sound of your own breath. It is slow and steady. You hear the breath of the other people in the room too. Some are deep and loud, others are very quiet. It is a chorus of rest. It tells you that you are not alone. You are safe in this group of travellers. The room feels very small and very tight, and for once, that is a good thing. As you reach up to pull the scratchy grey wool blanket closer to your neck, your fingers touch a small object hanging from a thin string around your neck. This is your micro-history detail for this part of the night, a flea trap. It is a tiny tube made of carved bone, no bigger than your thumb. It has many small holes bored into the sides. Inside the tube there is a small piece of cloth that has been dipped in honey and a tiny bit of animal blood. In these times, tiny biting bugs lived in the straw and the blankets. To stop them from biting your skin, you would wear this little trap. The bugs would smell the blood and crawl inside the holes, getting stuck in the sticky honey. It is a very clever way to have a peaceful night. You feel the smooth, cool bone against your skin. It gives you a sense of comfort. You know that you have done what you can to stay safe and rest well. A simple historical fact to remember as you drift away is that sleep in the Middle Ages was very different from how we sleep today. Most people did not expect to sleep for 8 hours in one go. Instead, they had what we now call first sleep and second sleep. You would go to bed when the sun went down and sleep deeply for a few hours. Then, in the middle of the night, you might wake up. You might talk quietly to the person next to you, or pray, or just think about your day. After an hour or so, you would fall back into a second sleep until the sun came up. This was the natural way to live when the only light came from the fire. You do not have to worry if you wake up later. It is just part of the night shift. You feel the straw moving beneath you as you settle your weight. It feels like a large, soft nest. You have pushed the stalks around your body so that they hold you like a warm hug. You can smell the sweet, grassy scent of the dried plants. It is a clean smell that reminds you of the summer sun. You think about the fields where this straw grew. You think about the tall green stalks waving in the breeze under a blue sky. Now those same stalks are keeping you warm in the dark. It is a nice thought to have as you fall away. The blanket is very heavy on your chest. It feels like a solid weight that is keeping you on the ground. You feel the scratchy wool against your chin. It is a bit rough, but it is also very warm. You tuck your hands inside the folds of the wall, curling them into small balls. Your fingers are no longer cold. They are warm and soft. You feel the tension leaving your toes. You feel the ache in your legs turning into a dull, fuzzy hum. It is a very good feeling. It is the feeling of your body finally letting go of the road. The wind outside gives the building a small push. You hear the thatch on the roof rustle. It sounds like a big bird shaking its feathers. But the sound is far away. Between you and the wind, there are thick stone walls and heavy wooden beams. You are tucked inside the heart of the house. You feel very protected. You are like a little seed buried deep in the earth waiting for the spring. The cold cannot reach you here. The dark cannot hurt you. You watch the last tiny bit of red light in the fire. It gets smaller and smaller. It is like a tiny eye closing for the night. The shadows in the rafters are so deep that they look like solid black wood. You cannot see the ceiling anymore. You can only feel the space above you. You take a slow, deep breath. The air is cool on your nose but warm in your lungs. It tastes of old smoke and dry hay. It is a heavy, sleepy air. Your thoughts are starting to get blurry. You are thinking about the road, but the road is turning into a river of gold. You are thinking about the innkeeper, but his face is turning into a friendly cloud. You are no longer a person who walks. You are just a person who rests. You are part of the floor, part of the straw, and part of the night. The heavy blanket, the scratchy wool, and the sweet smell of the lady's bedstraw flowers all come together to pull you down. You let out one last, long sigh. Your heart is beating very slowly now. Thump, thump, thump. It is a peaceful sound. You are not afraid of the dark. You are not worried about the morning. You are just here, in this tiny moment of peace. You feel the solid earth beneath the straw, supporting you. You feel the grey wool protecting you. You feel the tiny bone flea trap resting against your chest. Everything is exactly as it should be. The night shift is quiet, the fire is almost gone, and the long road is forgotten. You close your eyes, and the darkness is complete. You fall into your first heavy sleep, sinking deep into the heart of the medieval night. You wake up slowly. You do not wake up because you are scared or because someone has called your name. You wake up because of a sound. It is a single, sharp sound that cuts through the heavy silence of the room. Pop! A small pocket of sap inside a log has grown too hot. It has burst open. The sound is like a small finger snapping or a dry twig breaking under a heavy boot. In the quiet of the night, it feels very loud. It echoes off the thick stone walls and travels up into the dark, smoky rafters. You lie perfectly still in your nest of straw, your eyes opening just a tiny sliver. You are not fully awake, but you are no longer in your deep first sleep. This is a simple historical fact of your life in the medieval world. Most people do not sleep for one long block of time. You have finished your first sleep, which was deep and heavy like lead. Now you have entered a time of quiet wakefulness. It is common for travelers to wake up for an hour in the middle of the night. They might talk softly to a friend, or pray, or simply watch the room. In a little while you will fall into your second sleep, which will carry you all the way to the morning. This gap in the night is a peaceful time. It is a time for the mind to be still while the body rests. You look toward the center of the room. The great hearth is no longer a roaring beast of orange flames. It has become a soft, glowing heart of red and grey. The logs have crumbled into piles of embers that look like deep red rubies hidden under a layer of soft snow. This snow is the white ash. It is very thin and light. Every time a tiny draught of wind moves through the room, the ash stirs. It reveals the glowing red heat underneath. You watch a single ember pulse. It gets brighter, a deep, angry orange, and then it fades back to a soft pink. It looks like the fire is breathing. Glow, fade, glow, fade, glow, fade. It is a very slow rhythm, and watching it makes your own heart beat more slowly. The spark that woke you has landed in the grey ash. For a second, it is a tiny, bright star, much brighter than anything else in the room. It sits there, a speck of pure light, and then it slowly turns into a dull red dot and vanishes. You watch the spot where it was, waiting to see if another one will follow. The air above the hearth is wobbly from the heat. It makes the stones behind the fire look like they're moving underwater. You become aware of your own body. Beneath the heavy grey wool blanket, you are very warm. The heat from your first sleep is trapped in the wool and the straw. But the tip of your nose is cold. The air in the room has grown much cooler since you closed your eyes. When you breathe out, you can feel the warmth of your breath for just a second before the night air takes it away. You pull the blanket a little higher, so only your eyes and the very top of your head are peeking out. The wool is scratchy against your skin, but it feels like a strong wall keeping the cold out. You look at the object sitting near the edge of the hearth. This is your microhistory detail for this middle of the night watch, a couvre-feu. It is a large, heavy lid made of dull grey metal, shaped like a big bowl turned upside down. The name means cover the fire, and it is where we get our word for curfew. Every night before the innkeeper goes to his own bed, he puts this metal lid over the glowing coals. It has small holes in the side to let just enough air in so the fire does not die, but it keeps the sparks from flying out onto the straw floor while everyone is sleeping. The metal is dark and cold on the outside, but you know that inside it is holding the heat tight. It looks like a big, silent bell resting on the stone. Now, you fall into a moment of atmospheric silence. You're the only person in the room who is truly awake. To your left and right, you hear the sounds of the other sleepers. It is a landscape of sound. You hear the deep, rumbling snore of a merchant. You hear the soft, whistling breath of a young boy. You hear the rustle of straw as someone turns over in their dream. These sounds do not bother you. They are like the sound of the wind or the rain. They tell you that you are part of a group. You are not alone in the dark. You are tucked into a room full of life, and everyone is resting together. You feel a deep sense of peace. The silence is not empty. It is full of the safety of the inn. You look up at the ceiling. You cannot see the beams anymore. The darkness up there is as thick as ink. It feels like the roof has gone away, and you are looking up into a vast empty sky. But you know the roof is there. You can hear a tiny scratch snout from the thatch. Maybe it is a small bird or a mouse moving in the straw high above. The sound is very light and quick. It reminds you that the world is always moving, even when it is quiet. You shift your weight just a little bit. The straw under your body makes a crisp, dry sound. Crinkle, snap. It feels like you are lying on a bed of tiny glass bubbles that break whenever you move. You find a new spot that is even softer than the one before. You feel the solid, cold earth beneath the straw. It is the foundation of the house. It is the same earth that is outside under the frost, but here it is dry and protected. The room smells different now than it did when you first arrived. The smell of the roasted meat and the sour ale has faded. Now, the room smells of cold ash and dry grass. It is a clean, sleepy smell. It is the smell of a fire that has done its work. You take a slow, deep breath and feel the cool air fill your lungs. It makes you feel very calm. Your mind is clear and quiet. All the worries of the road, the mud, the tired miles, the heavy pack feel very far away. They belong to a different person in a different time. Right now, you are just a breather in the dark. You watch the red glow of the fire one last time. A tiny piece of ash floats up and then falls back down, landing silently on the stone. The light is very dim now. The shadows in the corners have moved closer to the hearth. You feel the heavy weight of the grey wool on your chest. It is a good weight. It is the weight of sleep coming back to find you. Your eyelids feel that they are made of lead again. They want to close. You do not fight them. You let your head sink deeper into the straw. The crinkle of the stalks is the last thing you hear. You feel the warmth of your own breath under the blanket. You are ready for your second sleep. The watchman of the night, the little metal fire cover, and the thick stone walls will keep the world away. You are safe. You are warm. You are part of the long, quiet history of the inn. The night shift continues, but you are drifting back into the dark, happy straw. You lie very still in your nest of straw. Your eyes open just a tiny bit. The room is much darker than it was when you first arrived. The red glow of the fire is now just a memory, hidden under the heavy metal lid of the fire cover. But the room is not truly silent. It is full of the sounds of other people. This is the sound of the night shift at its deepest point. You are not alone in this big dark room. All around you, there are other travellers, each one tucked into their own little patch of straw or lying on the long wooden benches. You listen to the sound of the breathing. It is a very strange and beautiful thing to hear. It is not just one sound, but many layers of sound joined together. To your right, you hear a man whose breath is deep and heavy. It sounds like a slow tide coming in and out on a pebble beach. Whoosh, pause, woof. Further away, near the cold stone hearth, someone is making a soft whistling sound through their nose. It is a tiny, high note that repeats every few seconds. It sounds like a small bird trapped in the rafters. Then, from the middle of the room, you hear the loud, rumbling snore of a merchant. It is a rough, vibrating sound that makes the air feel like it is shaking. A simple historical fact to remember is that in these times, almost no one slept in a room by themselves. Even in their own homes, families would sleep together in one big bed or on the floor near the fire. Privacy was not something people looked for or even wanted. Being alone in the dark was considered dangerous. To these people, the sound of other sleepers was the sound of safety. It meant that there were others to watch for fire or to wake you if a thief tried to come through the door. Sharing your breath with strangers was just a part of life. It made the big, dark world feel a little bit smaller and a little bit more like home. You turn your head slowly on your pillow. This is your micro-history detail for this quiet hour. A straw-stuffed bolster. It is not a soft, fluffy pillow like you might have today. It is a long, round bag made of very thick, rough linen. Inside, it is packed tight with the same dry straw that is on the floor. It is very hard, almost like a log of wood. It does not sink when you put your head on it. Instead, it holds your neck high and firm. You can feel the lumpy stalks of the grain through the heavy cloth. When you move your head, the straw inside the bolster makes a sharp, dry scrunch sound right against your ear. It smells of dust and the dry summer sun. It is a simple tool, but it keeps your head off the cold dirt floor, and that is a great luxury. Now, you fall into a moment of atmospheric silence. You stop trying to pick out the different snores and whistles. You just let the sound of the room wash over you as one big wave. It is a very steady, rhythmic noise. It sounds like the heartbeat of the inn. You feel as if you are inside a large wooden clock that is ticking very slowly. The noise does not keep you awake. It pulls you deeper into the straw. You watch the way the shadows on the beams look like they are moving in time with the breathing. You feel very calm. The world outside, with its cold wind and its empty roads, feels like it has vanished. There is only this room, this warmth, and these people. You hear a new sound from the corner. It is the rustle of a heavy woolen cloak. Someone is turning over, trying to find a softer spot in their bed. You hear the crisp crackle snap of the dry rushes on the floor. It is a loud sound in the quiet, like someone stepping on a pile of dry autumn leaves. You wait to see if they will wake up, but the sound is followed by a long, slow sigh of rest. They have found their spot. The silence returns, but it is a living silence. It is a silence that is full of life. You think about the dog you saw earlier, the brown hound with the long ears. You can hear him too. He's sleeping near the hearth, and every now and then he let out a tiny, muffled yip in his sleep. Perhaps he is dreaming of chasing a rabbit through a green field. You hear his paws scratch lightly against the stone. Scratch, scratch. It is a friendly sound. It reminds you that the animals are part of the night shift too. They guard the house just as much as the innkeeper does. The air in the room is very still. The smoke has all risen up into the rafters, leaving the air near the floor cool and clear. You take a slow, deep breath. The scent of the dry straw and the woolen blankets is very strong. It is an earthy, honest smell. You feel the weight of your own grey blanket on your chest. It feels like a solid, heavy shield. You tuck your chin down into the wall, feeling the scratchy threads against your skin. You are very warm now. The heat from the pottage and the fire has settled deep into your bones. You watch a tiny bit of light from a single dying ember hit the side of a wooden cup on the table. The wood looks dark and polished. For a second, you see the reflection of the room in the smooth surface. It is a world of shadows and soft edges. Then the light fades and the cup disappears back into the dark. You feel your own mind starting to go fuzzy. The sounds of the other sleepers are like a soft lullaby. Whoosh, whistle, snore, snore. They are the music of the inn. You feel a deep sense of honor in sharing this night with these people. You do not know their names, and you might never see their faces in the bright light of day. But for these few hours, you are closer to them than you are to anyone else. You are all part of the same story. You are all travelers resting before the next long walk. You feel a sense of peace that you never felt on the road. The inn is a place where the world stops for a while, and you are tucked right into its heart. The darkness is very deep now. You cannot see your own hand in front of your face. But you don't need to see. You can feel the solid earth beneath you. You can hear the safety of the room. You let your head sink back into the hard straw-filled bolster. The dry stalks make one last, quiet crinkle under your ear. Your heart is beating very slowly. You are ready to go back to your second sleep. The night shift is halfway through its work, and the house is full of dreams. You close your eyes, and the sound of the breathing carries you away, down into the soft dark straw of the medieval night. You wake up slowly, but this time it is not a sound that pulls you from your sleep. It is a feeling. It is the cold. While you were dreaming, the fire in the center of the room has turned to cold grey ash. The heavy metal lid of the fire cover has done its job of keeping the sparks safe. But it cannot stop the heat from leaving the room. The fixed stone walls, which felt so warm and protective when you first arrived, are now holding the deep chill of the night. You feel as if the building itself has turned into a giant block of ice. You lie very still, but you can feel the cold air moving across the room like a slow, invisible river. It finds every little gap in the wooden shutters and every crack in the door. It moves over the straw and under the edges of your heavy grey blanket. The tip of your nose feels very cold, almost numb. When you breathe in, the air feels sharp and thin, like you're swallowing tiny needles of ice. You stay perfectly still because you know that if you move, the warm pocket of air you have made under the blanket will escape. You are like a small animal hiding in its burrow, waiting for the sun to come back and save you. A simple historical fact to keep in mind is that in these times, people did not take off their clothes to go to sleep. Most travellers would keep on their tunics, their thick woolen hosen, and even their hats. Your clothes are your first layer of protection against the world. You do not have a heater to turn on or a soft duvet filled with feathers. Your warmth comes from the wool you wear on your body. Because the nights can get so bitter, your cloak is your most important tool for survival. It is not just a coat for walking, it is your bed and your house. You reach out a hand from the warmth of the wool. The air hits your skin, and you feel a sudden shiver run down your arm. You find the edges of your heavy travel cloak. This is your micro-history detail for this cold hour, a penannular brooch. This is a large circular pin made of dark hammered iron used to hold your cloak together. It is shaped like a ring with a small gap in it and a long sharp needle that slides across. You can feel the cold metal of the brooch against your fingers. It is icy and smooth. You pull the heavy fabric of the cloak upward, unpinning it so you can spread the wide circle of wool over the top of your blanket. This cloak is made of the same thick, oily wool as your blanket. It is heavy and smells of the road and the rain. As you pull it over your head, you feel the weight of it pressing down. It is a good weight. It is the weight. It is the weight of another layer of safety. You tuck your head underneath the folds of the cloak so that only a tiny hole is left for you to breathe. Now, you're inside a dark, worn tent. The scratchy wool is against your cheeks, and the smell of the old earth and smoke is very strong, but the cold air from the room can no longer reach your face. You feel your own breath warming the space around your head. Now, you fall into a moment of atmospheric silence. You're tucked away in your dark woolen tent. You cannot see the room, and you cannot see the dying fire. You only hear the world. You listen to your own breathing. It is slow and steady. In, out, in, out, in, out. You watch the tiny clouds of mist from your breath as they appear for a second in the dark and then vanish. This is a very quiet, private moment. You are the only person who knows you are awake inside this little mountain of wool. You feel the silence of the inn pressing against you. It is a heavy silence, like a deep fall of snow. Even the snores of the other travellers sound far away now, muffled by the layers of fabric over your ears. You listen to the wind outside. It has changed its tune. It is no longer a loud, angry roar. It is a thin, lonely whistle that moves through the straw of the roof. It sounds like a ghost looking for a way inside. You hear the thatch move. Scritch, scritch. It sounds like 1,000 tiny feet are dancing on the ceiling. You know it is just the wind, but in the dark, it is easy to imagine things. You pull the cloak a little tighter around your ears. You feel the solid hard earth beneath the straw. The earth stays the same, no matter how cold the air gets. It is your foundation. You think about the miles you have walked to get here. You think about how your legs felt like lead and how your back was aching. All of that seems like it happened a long time ago. Right now, the only thing that matters is the warmth of your breath and the weight of the wool. You feel a sense of honor in this struggle. Surviving the night is a job of its own. Every person in this room is doing that job right now. You are all fighting the cold in your own way, huddling in the straw and waiting for the morning light. The cold in the room is a very honest thing. It does not hide. It tells you that winter is coming. It tells you that the world is big and you are very small. But you have your cloak, and you have your brooch, and you have your spot in the straw. You feel a deep sense of peace. You are not moving. You are not walking through the mud. You are just being. You are a traveler at rest, and the cold is just a part of the story. You feel your eyelids getting heavy again. The warmth under the cloak is very soothing. It feels like you are being wrapped in a giant fuzzy hug. Your mind starts to wander. You think about the sun rising over the fields. You think about the golden light hitting the frosted grass. You can almost see the steam rising from the ground as the world wakes up. But that is for later. Right now, it is still the time for the night shift. It is still the time for staying still and keeping the heat inside. You run your fingers over the iron brooch one last time. It is starting to feel a little bit warmer now that it is tucked under the wall with you. You let your hand fall back to your side. You feel the straw crinkle under your weight. The sound is soft and dry. It is the sound of your bed. You take one last, slow breath of the warm air inside your cloak. You are ready to go back to sleep. The cold room can stay outside. The wind can whistle through the thatch. You are safe in your nest of wool and hay. You close your eyes, and the darkness of the cloak becomes the darkness of a deep, quiet dream. The night is almost over, but there is still time for one last rest before the dawn. The darkness inside your woolen tent begins to change. For a long time, the world behind your closed eyes was as black as the bottom of a deep well. But now you sense a shift. You open your eyes just a tiny bit. You are still tucked under the heavy grey wadmal blanket and your thick cloak, but the air inside your little nest is no longer pitch black. A very faint, cool light is starting to find its way through the weave of the wool. You pull the edge of the cloak down from your face, moving slowly so the warm air does not escape. You take a slow breath. The room is no longer a world of shadows. It has turned a soft, pale blue. This is the hour of the dawn. It is the time when the night shift begins to hand the world over to the day. You lie perfectly still in the straw, watching the room emerge from the dark. The blue light is very thin and watery. It seeps through the tiny gaps in the wooden shutters and the cracks in the stone walls. It does not look like the bright yellow sun of midday. It looks like the colour of a frozen lake or the skin of a plum. It is a quiet, cold light that makes everything look gentle and soft. You look toward the centre of the room. The great stone hearth is now a mound of cold grey ash. The red glow from the night is gone. The metal fire cover sits on the stones, looking like a dark, silent bell. The long wooden tables, which look like tall giants in the firelight, now just look like simple, heavy boards. You can see the outlines of the other travellers. They look like lumpy grey hills in the straw. No one is moving yet. The room is held in a deep morning silence. This is your moment of atmospheric silence. You do not hear any voices. You do not hear any cups clinking. You only hear the very slow, deep breathing of the sleepers. It sounds like the heartbeat of the building itself. You watch a single ray of pale light as it touches a beam of wood high above your head. The light moves very slowly, almost as if it is afraid to wake anyone up. You see tiny specks of dust dancing in the blue beam. They move in slow, lazy circles, spinning like tiny feathers. You feel very calm. The world feels new, as if it has just been made this very minute. You are the only person watching the light grow, and that feels like a special secret. As the light grows a little stronger, you see an object sitting on a shelf near the door. This is your micro-history detail for the morning, a horn lantern. In this time, glass is very expensive and hard to find. To make a lantern that will not blow out in the wind, the people use the horn of a cow. They soak the horn in water for many weeks, until it is soft, then they scrape it with a sharp knife, until it is as thin as a piece of paper. You can see the thin sheets of horn set into the wooden frame of the lantern. It is a creamy yellow colour, even without a candle burning inside. The morning light catches the horn and makes it glow softly. It is a clever, simple thing made from the earth and the animals. It has stood watch near the door all night, waiting for someone to carry it out into the fields. A simple historical fact to remember is that in the medieval world, the sun was the only clock that mattered to most people. Candles were expensive, and oil for lamps was hard to get. Because of this, people lived their lives by the light of the sky. When the sun went down, the day was finished. When the pale blue light of dawn appeared, the day began. There was no reason to stay in bed once you could see your own hand in front of your face. The light was a signal to the whole village to wake up, to light the fires, and to get back to work. You are feeling that same pull now. Even though the straw is warm and your body is tired, the blue light is telling you that your rest is almost over. You watch the way the light hits the floor. The yellow rushes look pale and cold now. You see a small patch of frost on the stones near the door, where the cold air has been licking the ground all night. The frost looks like tiny, sparkling diamonds. You think about the road outside. It will be white with frost too. The deep mud ruts will be frozen hard, making the ground crunch under your boots. The thought of the cold makes you shiver once, and you pull the blanket a little tighter. But you know you cannot stay here forever. The inn is a place for the night, and the night is fading away. The room starts to smell different. The heavy, sweet scent of the pomander and the sour ale is being pushed away by a fresh, sharp smell. It is the smell of the morning air. It is the smell of the morning air. It is thin and clean. It smells like wet stone and cold grass. You take a deep breath, and it makes your chest feel tight for a second. It wakes up your mind. You feel the fog of sleep starting to lift from your brain. You are becoming a traveler again. You hear a small sound from the other side of the room. It is the sound of a heavy woolen cloak rubbing against the straw. Scritch, scratch. Someone else is waking up. You see a shadow move. A man sits up slowly, rubbing his face with his hands. He looks toward the window and lets out a long, quiet sigh. The silence of the night is broken. Now the morning sounds will start to grow. You hear the far-off sound of a rooster crowing in the village. It is a thin, lonely sound that travels through the cold air. It is the true voice of the dawn. You feel a sense of peace as you watch the blue light turn into a soft grey. You have survived the cold and the dark. You have shared your breath with strangers and found safety in a house of stone. The night shift is coming to an end. You have rested your body, and you have heard the stories of the road. You feel ready to face the miles ahead. You are no longer a shadow in the corner. You are a person standing at the edge of a new day. You run your hand over the straw one last time. It feels dry and brittle. You have crushed many of the stalks with your weight during the night. You look at the heavy grey blanket. It has kept you warm when the fire went out. You feel a quiet thankfulness for these simple things. The wood, the wool, the stone, and the straw. They are the things that keep the world moving. You take one last, slow breath in the pale blue light. The house is waking up. The day is calling. You are part of the long, quiet history of the road, and it is time to get ready for the first step. The dawn is here, and the watch of the night is nearly done. You sit up in the straw, and the movement makes the cold air of the room rush against your skin. The blue light of dawn has grown stronger now, turning into a bright, clear grey. The inn is no longer a place of shadows and secrets. It is a place of business once again. You can see the dust floating in the air, and you can see the weary faces of the other travellers as they climb out of their blankets. Your stomach gives a small, sharp pinch. You are hungry. On the road, you do not always get a big meal in the morning, but in a good inn, there is always something to break your fast. You stand up, and your legs feel a bit stiff. You walk toward the long wooden table where you sat last night. The room is much colder now than it was when the fire was high. You see the innkeeper's wife near the hearth. She is not cooking a big stew this morning. Instead, she is busy at the table with a large wooden board. This is where the morning meal is kept. In this time, breakfast is a simple thing. It is not about eggs or bacon. It is about the most important food in the medieval world. It is about the bread. You sit down at the table and wait. This is your moment of atmospheric silence. You watch the lady as she works. She has a large, round loaf of bread in her hands. It is the size of a small shield. The crust is thick and brown, dusted with white flour that looks like frost. She takes a long knife and cuts a thick slice. The sound of the knife going through the crust is a sharp, dry crunch. You can see the steam rising from the inside of the loaf. It was baked early this morning in the big stone oven outside. In this quiet moment, the smell of the warm bread fills your nose. It is a sweet, yeasty smell that makes you feel very grounded. You watch a single crumb fall onto the dark wood of the table. Everything is calm and slow. A simple historical fact to remember is that bread was the heart of every meal. For a traveller, a piece of good, heavy bread was better than gold. It gave you the energy to walk 10 or 15 miles. This bread is not white and soft like the bread you might know. It is dark and heavy. It is made from a mix of rye and wheat, and it has bits of the whole grain left inside. This is called massven bread. It stays fresh for a long time and it fills your belly so that you do not feel hungry again for many hours. To a person on the road, this slice of bread is their fuel. It is what keeps their feet moving. The innkeeper's wife sets a piece of the bread in front of you, next to which she places your microhistory detail for this morning, a wooden butter pat. This is a small, flat tool made of pale birch wood. It has little ridges carved into the bottom. She uses it to lift a small lump of yellow butter from a stone jar and press it onto your bread. The butter is salty and thick. It was made from the milk of the cows in the field next door. As the warm bread touches the butter, you see it start to melt. It turns into a golden oil that soaks into the holes in the bread. You can see the tiny yellow drops glistening in the morning light. You pick up the slice of bread. It feels heavy in your hand. You take your first bite. The crust is very hard and you have to chew it slowly. It tastes of salt and roasted grain. The middle of the bread is soft and warm, and the salty butter makes it taste wonderful. It is a simple taste, but it is the best thing you have eaten all day. You feel the strength coming back into your body. The chill of the room doesn't seem so bad now that you have something warm and solid in your stomach. You look around the table. Other people are eating too. No one talks much. Everyone is busy thinking about the road ahead. You see a man dipping his bread into a small bowl of thin ale. This helps to soften the hard crust. You do the same, taking a sip of the cold ale to wash down the heavy grain. The ale is sharp and wakes up your tongue. You feel your mind becoming clear. The fog of sleep is completely gone now. You are ready to be a traveller again. You watch the innkeeper move through the room. He is opening the heavy wooden shutters. As each one swings wide, a burst of bright cold light hits the floor. It shows the patches of dirt and the crushed rushes. The inn looks different in this light. It looks rough and honest. You see the smoke from the last few embers rising in a thin line toward the roof. The dog by the fire wakes up and stretches, his claws making a tiny clack-clack sound on the stone hearth. He shakes himself, his ears flapping loudly. Even the animals know it is time to go. You finish the last bit of your bread. You use your thumb to pick up the last few crumbs from the table and pop them into your mouth. You do not want to waste a single bit. In this world, food is a gift. You feel a sense of honor in the simple breakfast. You are not eating in a hurry. You are taking the time to thank the bread for the strength it gives you. You feel solid. You feel ready. The ache in your back from the straw is gone, replaced by the warmth of the meal. The innkeeper's wife takes the wooden board away. You hear the soft thud of the bread being put back into its cloth. The meal is over. You stand up and feel your legs are strong. You go back to your corner to gather your things. You pick up your heavy travel pack and slide the straps over your shoulders. The leather feels familiar and right. You pick up your walking staff. The smooth wood is cool in your hand. You are no longer a sleeper in the straw. You are a person of the road once more. You take a slow, deep breath. The air smells of fresh bread and cold morning. It is a good smell. It is the smell of a new start. You look at the table one last time, seeing the empty spots where you and the others sat. The night shift is over, and the day shift is beginning. You have been fed, you have been warmed, and you have been kept safe. You walk toward the door, your boots making a firm sound on the hard dirt floor. The latch is waiting for you. The road is waiting for you. You are ready to step out of the golden haze of the inn and into the wide, bright world. The heavy wooden bolt of the front door is pulled back with a loud, echoing clunk. As the innkeeper swings the oak door open, the morning rushes into the room. It is not like the warm, thick air of the common room. It is sharp, clean, and very cold. It smells of frozen grass, wet stone, and the wide open sky. You stand near the threshold, your pack settled firmly on your shoulders and your walking staff in your hand. You feel the weight of your gear, but it no longer feels like a burden. It feels like your own small world, ready to move once more. You take a final step across the dirt floor, your boots making a last crunch in the dry rushes. You pause at the doorway and look back into the room. This is your final moment of atmospheric silence. The fire is now just a pile of cold grey ash. The long tables are empty, and the golden light of the night has been replaced by the honest, flat light of the morning. You see the straw where you slept, now flattened and messy. You see the empty wooden mazer you drank from and the spot where you shared the thick stew. For a heartbeat, the room feels like a friend you are leaving behind. You feel a deep sense of peace. The inn has done its work. It held you in its thick stone arms when you were tired and cold, and now it is letting you go. A simple historical fact to carry with you is that for people in medieval times, leaving the inn was a moment of both hope and prayer. The road ahead was always uncertain. There were no maps on paper to follow and no lights to guide the way if you were late. Every traveller knew that they relied on the kindness of the weather and the strength of their own legs. As you step out, you see a small wooden cross carved into the doorframe. This is your micro-history detail, a traveller's mark. Many people would touch this mark with their thumb as they left, asking for a safe journey to the next town. You run your finger over the small rough grooves in the wood. It feels cool and solid. It's a tiny connection to everyone else who has walked through this door. You step outside, and the transition is complete. The ground is no longer the soft, packed dirt of the floor. It is the hard, frozen earth of the road. The mud ruts from yesterday have turned into ridges of ice that look like grey glass. They crunch loudly under your boots. Crump, snap, crump. The sun is bright and clear in the morning air. You look up at the sky. It is a pale, beautiful blue, like the inside of a seashell. The sun is just starting to peek over the edge of the world, sending long, thin shadows across the frosted fields. The air is so cold that your breath looks like white smoke. It swirls around your face before the wind carries it away. But you do not feel the chill the same way you did yesterday. Your body is warm from the morning bread and the rest in the straw. You feel strong. You feel steady. You turn your face toward the light and feel the very first touch of the sun's warmth on your skin. It is a gentle, golden feeling. You start to walk. The rhythm of the road finds you quickly. Step. Plant the staff. Step. You feel the muscles in your legs waking up, stretching out as you move. You look back one last time at the inn. It looks small now, a low building of stone and thatch sitting quietly beside the path. A thin curl of blue smoke is starting to rise from the chimney again as the innkeeper's wife starts the new fire for the day. The building has been there for 100 years, and it will be there for 100 more, waiting for the next tired traveller to knock on its door. The sun is rising. The gates of the day are opening. You are moving forward into the light, leaving the shadows of the night shift behind. Your journey continues, but your heart is quiet. You have survived the night, and you have found your strength. The world is wide and bright, and the path is clear beneath your feet. The sun is rising. The gates are opening. The watch is ended.